I'll call the Noblesville Common Council meeting for December 3rd to order at 7 p.m. If you'd all rise for a moment of silence for Fred Fowl, who was a member of the tree board and also had perfect attendance at a lot of council meetings for a few years before Megan Wiles leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Lees, could you call the roll?
Mr. Boyce?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Elliott?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Schwartz? Mr. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Thurston?
Present.
Ms. Wiles?
Present.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I would move that we amend the agenda to add ordinance number 74-12-24, an ordinance amending the rules of procedure of the Noblesville Common Council of the City of Noblesville to new ordinances for discussion under other ordinances. And this is an ordinance to adjust our meeting time for 2025.
Second. There's a motion to approve the agenda as amended I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended. To amend the agenda, sorry, to amend the agenda.
So moved. Second.
The motion to amend the agenda, there's a hand vote. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Mr. President, sorry.
8-0.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second. There's a motion to approve the agenda as amended, and a second. There's a hand vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Petitions or comments by citizens who are present. I have several up here. Here comes another one. I will assume these are all about the last two items on the agenda. If someone has something else to speak about, please jump up when we get to that item. Mayor's comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, I'll be brief tonight. I'll be back up a little bit later to talk about the development agreement, the project in front of you tonight. I wanted just to quickly say a few words about this past weekend. I want to thank so many people who were out and about on Small Business Saturday. I said, this community is the definition of small business, and it's been built on the back of small businesses, and it was great to see everyone all around our downtown square. The Noblesville High School drum line was down there. It was a little frigid, but the sun was shining, and the shops were packed. So really appreciate all those that stepped up to support our small businesses on Small Business Saturday. Looking ahead, I also want to thank those who volunteered and ran in the Michael Trinan Turkey Trot. Mr. Johnson, I know you were on the board there. It was an awesome event on Thursday morning. Aaron Smith blew past me, was well ahead of me, was actually at his home by the time I passed his home. He had finished and gotten home by the time I was dragging some 8- and 9-year-olds with me. But it was a great day, and I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Looking ahead to this weekend, there is a lot going on in the city of Noblesville. I can tell you Friday is the first Friday. Noblesville Main Street's first Friday will be kicking off with lights over Seminary, where we'll be lighting up Seminary Park. I'll be reading the night before Christmas a little after 6 o'clock. We'll turn the lights on at 6. We'll read the night before Christmas a little after 6 o'clock. And then we encourage folks to get in and around our downtown square to enjoy a First Friday. And then on Saturday, we're looking forward to bringing back one of our newer traditions, which is our Holiday and Lights Parade, which will be on Saturday evening. Through about the normal parade route, it's actually going to be cutting up Hannibal Street, I believe, instead of Monument Street to make its way back to Ivy Tech, but pretty much the exact same parade route we take for most parades in the city of Noblesville. We have a record number of entries. There's some competitions going on, and it is truly a magical kind of hallmark moment in our downtown on Saturday night. So hope you can come out and join us. Again, thanks for the many Noblesville not-for-profits and faith-based organizations that are taking place in that on Saturday night to enjoy a wonderful evening. But again, just wanted to make sure folks knew what was going on, and Mr. Boyce has probably something to add.
I was going to say, speaking of the parade, you may mention who it is, but I thought it was a great Grand Marshal choice this year.
Yeah, thank you.
We for a long time done an awful lot for city and the high school, and just good call.
Thank you for bringing that up. Stephen and Moffett Craig, who owns Adrian's Flowers, but just a few doors down from here, they are retiring at the end of the year. Stephen, to see him is to love him, and he usually has some great floral joke every time you see him. And he's first to give you a corsage if you have a major speech to give, and it just, we'll miss them as business owners, but certainly they're still in the community. They will be our grand marshals on Saturday night, so
Very good
we're
call.
really excited about that. So again, thanks for the opportunity. I'll be back up a little bit later to talk about the new development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Council committee reports. Finance, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met November 27th. Dave Johnson, Aaron Smith, Megan Wiles, and myself. Wendy Strimlaw from the Parks Department gave us an update on the 2025 golf professional contract. Tom McDonald went over a fiscal action appropriation transfer for facility upgrades, and also another appropriation transfer for parks and recreation events. And finally, Tom discussed an appropriation transfer investment fees. That and the claims come to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Davis?
Mr. President, I would move that we accept the claims as presented.
Second. Motion to approve the claims in second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Miscellaneous. Council to hear Noblesville Utilities 2025 budget review. Jonathan Murgo. Can't believe all these people showed up to hear about our utilities. This is crazy.
I am so excited and humbled by this public turnout. So much excitement for the wastewater budget. Honorable members of the council, Mr. President, respectfully submit the summary of the Utility Department's 2025 budgetary forecast for the council's review and oversight. In actuality, the council has already reviewed and approved significant portions of this budget when it adopted the 4-year fixed sewer rate increase earlier this year, as supported by the rate study prepared by our independent outside accounting firm Baker Tilly. We also provide a deep dive into all the figures and key factors in our quarterly wastewater council committee that's overseen by Councilors Boyce, Davis, Elliott, and chaired by Councilor Schwartz. And it's open to the public, so please come on in. This report continues the trend of providing increased detail and a more comprehensive forecast of our finances and strategies. Key improvements to this year's forecasts include adding revenue and expenses related to trash service, a more detailed breakdown of our various revenue sources, and forecasting revenues from the sewer connection and availability fee, also known as the new user tap fees. The Utility Department's 2025 budget forecast indicates that the utility lives within our means. As shown in the forecast summary, we're projecting operating revenues to outpace operating expenses by around $190,000. As we're at the beginning, view of our expenses. As we're at the beginning of a 4-year fixed rate, we forecast a significant transfer to the capital maintenance fund. Lastly, our final page. Our final page of the budget includes our 1-year list of capital project priorities and targeted funding sources. I just want to acknowledge the continued improvement of this forecast is due to the team that has helped raise the bar. We have our new in-house accountant, Steve Stricker, I believe he's in the room here today, working alongside our Assistant Director, Carrie Hudson, in conjunction with OFA, the Office of Finance and Accounting, and the city CFO, Jeff Spalding, and his team. Also, due to the hard work from our billing administrator, Felicia Hunt, and our capital program support from Kristen Parker and the Assistant City Engineer, Jim Hellman. There's no council action required on this presentation. This information will form the baseline to which the 2025 quarterly updates to the council committee will be compared. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Rago?
Mr. President, I don't have a question, but just, I'm going to take advantage of having all of these wonderful neighbors in the audience tonight and say, much to my daughter's chagrin, anyone who's been on the president up here knows that I ask annually to be on the utilities committee because it's so fascinating to me. It's pretty amazing that we can go anywhere from Hamilton Town Center to the far west side of our city, and no matter what you ate, you can go down the toilet, and a few days later, without any real chemicals other than just natural chemicals and oxygen, we're able to clean that water and then put it back in the White River, cleaner than the regular water going down the White River. So I invite you, Jonathan may not like this, but I would love to invite any of you to go take a tour of it. You probably don't want to when it's this cold, but don't go when it's too warm either, because it's enjoyable.
This is the time of year to take the tour.
But I will say, it is fascinating, and that's pretty impressive. So Jonathan, you don't get much credit for taking care of this, but you and your department, Steve and everybody, it is something that is pretty amazing that I think we all take advantage of and take for granted an awful lot when you flush, so thank you.
Absolutely, and we welcome the additional people. We provide tours free to the public. Very excited to share.
Thank you for your diligence with this budget, too. It's always very informative and complete. Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk about food.
Any other questions? Thank you. Council, miscellaneous number 2, council received notice of 2024 appointments. Everyone leaves.
Good evening. I'm just notifying you that you do have appointments that are expiring at the end of the year. You have appointments on the Advisory Council on Disabilities, the Facade Grant Review Committee, Parks Foundation Board, the Plan Commission, and the Redevelopment Commission. You also have an appointment to the Police Merit Commission that will expire at the end of January, but you're welcome to appoint them a little bit early, and it will be effective then. Also, a new appointment this year is to the Audit Committee that was established earlier by Ordinance 150424. One member of this body will need to be appointed by the rest to serve a 3-year term on the Audit Committee. And this will be on the agenda at the next meeting for a vote on those appointments.
Thank you. If anybody would like to get involved in one of those committees, please reach out to myself or Megan Miles. There's no action on that item. Transfers. Council to consider transfer TA 0824, an appropriation transfer in the general fund to provide funding for maintenance projects. Tom McDonald.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Tom McDonald, Deputy Financial Officer with the Office of Finance and Accounting. And this item is a $75,000 transfer in the maintenance department budget from the capital outlay expense series to the services and other charges expense series. And the reason for this is that there were planned capital costs that will no longer be incurred this year, and instead that spending authority would be used to support painting and flooring updates in City Hall and the Public Safety Building.
And again, this is not new money or new appropriation. This is just moving from one fund to another.
That's correct. It's aligning the funding in the correct expense series.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McDonald?
Only thing I would add, on all these transfers, they went through the Finance Committee, and we talked about them pretty thoroughly.
So with that, Mr. President, I would move that we approve transfer TA-08-24 as presented.
Second. Motion and second to approve transfer TA 0824 in a second. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA 0924, an appropriation transfer in the Parks Program Fund to provide funding for events and programs hosted by the Parks and Recreation Department. Tom McDonald.
Thank you. This is a $33,000 appropriation transfer within the Parks Program Fund, and it's from the non-departmental contingency budget to the Parks Recreation budget. The reason for this is that there were an increased number of events that were organized and hosted by the Parks Department this year, and so they need the spending authority to support those events. And typically, the events revenue, to the extent possible, supports those events. In this case, some of those costs need to be supported by the Parks Program Fund through sufficient revenue,
And with this action, sufficient ending balance will still be maintained.
Cash reserves, okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President, I would move that we approve transfer TA-09-24 as presented.
Second. Motion approved, transfer TA 0924 in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA 1024, an appropriation transfer in the rainy day fund to provide funding for investment fees. Tom McDonald.
Thank you. So this item, as well as the next two, deals with the spending authority needs to pay for investment fees. So this first one is a transfer of $16,100 to support the investment fees for the rainy day fund. Just, again, want to tell you about the revenue earnings or the investment earnings year-to-date is roughly $583,000. Again, you're just supporting, this action would support the investment fees of $16,100.
So I understand that's normally you would just take the fees out of the investment returns, but in this case, we're tracking them separate, so we have an accurate amount of.
Yes, we're establishing that process to just be very transparent about what we're earning versus what we're spending.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President, I would move that we approve transfer TA-10-24 as presented.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve transfer TA 1024. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council, don't go anywhere, Tom. Council to consider transfer TA 1124, an appropriation transfer in the local road and street fund to provide funding for investment fees. Tom McDonald.
Thank you. In this case, this is a $4,000 transfer to support investment fees for the local road and street fund. Year-to-date investment earnings, $143,000.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President, I would move that we approve transfer TA-11-24 as presented.
Second. Motion approved TA 1124 in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Council to consider transfer TA 1224, an appropriation transfer in the motor vehicle highway fund to provide funding for investment fees. Tom McDonald.
Thank you. So this is, again, a $4,000 transfer in the motor vehicle highway fund. This is same amount, same investment earnings as a local road and street fund because it has the same principal, same investment portfolio.
My understanding is we'll have to do this next year, right? This is going to be...
Unfortunately, this is not built into the 2025 adopted budget, so we may have to come back for the appropriation, but we do intend to build it in the 2026, so we don't have to come back.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
I appreciate the lengths that you guys are taking to track this, because I think it's a great way for us to keep track of what our investment portfolio looks like.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve transfer TA-12-24 as presented.
Second.
Motion approved transfer TA 1224 in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Thank you. New ordinance for discussion. Council to consider ordinance 741224, an ordinance amending the rules of procedure for the Common Council of the City of Noblesville, Indiana.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Jonathan Hughes.
Good evening, Council. Jonathan Hughes, City Attorney. Nice to see you all. I'm going to put a copy of this up here because this was a late add to your agenda. As Councilmember Vice President Wiles indicated, this addition to is a modification to the rules. Earlier this year, we posted the meetings for next year. The council indicated the unanimous support to move the meeting to 6 p.m. Your ordinance currently says it's at 7 p.m. It seems more appropriate that the council can make a decision by a majority vote, and so this would just adopt that into your rules, which would be effective starting at your December meeting. Or your January meeting, I'm sorry, that those meetings will start at 6. So the next December meeting will still be at 7, but starting in January, we begin meeting at 6. Happy to answer any questions, otherwise this will be available for vote at your next meeting.
Any questions? Thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Council to consider ordinance 681124, an ordinance amending the Prairie Lakes Trilogy Plan Development regarding the construction of patio homes northeast of Prairie Lakes Boulevard.
Move to introduce ordinance 6811-24.
Second.
Amy Stephens.
Thank you. This is an amendment to the Prairie Lakes Plan Development Ordinance that was originally adopted in 1997 for 159 acres, bordered by 141st Street, State Road 37, 146, and Cumberland Road. In 2020, the Plan Commission held a public hearing to consider a change of zoning for a portion of that 159 acres. The rezoning dealt with 8.1 acres along Prairie Lakes Boulevard, east of an assisted living facility that was built between 1997 and 2000, or 2020 rather, when this amendment was adopted. The 2020 amendment allowed for duplex senior housing and consideration of a preliminary development plan. The amendment eliminated from the 2008 ordinance independent living facilities of up to 100 individual dwelling units and instead allowed for 16 one- and two-bedroom duplex buildings for a total of 32 units for persons 55 years of age and older with an associated clubhouse and parking. The council did adopt the amendment to the PD ordinance with some extra parking as well, and that was adopted in 2020. However, between 2020 and current, the detailed development plan was never adopted and no permits were ever issued. Nothing was ever built. Under consideration tonight is an amendment to the plan development that comes to you with a positive recommendation from the Plan Commission at their October 28th meeting. The plan is essentially the same as what the council adopted in 2020, with one change essentially. In 2020, that preliminary development plan showed the garages recessed between the duplex units. The current proposed development plan shows those garages pushed forward. I'm showing the proposed elevations for you. This is of the one unit, or the one-bedroom unit. Elevation is essentially the same for the two-bedroom units. You'll see each unit will have a single-car garage with additional parking, obviously, in the driveway, with a covered front or covered rear patio. They are proposing vinyl shakes in the gables on the end of each unit, as well as the little gable detail over the shared garage space. They're also proposing a 2,100 square foot community building. The community building will have full masonry on the front, and again, the vinyl shake and the gable detail. The Plan Commission did attach some conditions of approval to the project. Those conditions deal with a secondary plat application being submitted to combine the two parcels into one, which they have already done. Additional landscaping should be provided on the rear elevations of the units facing Prairie Lake Crossing Boulevard. The trees located in the easement along Prairie Lakes Boulevard should be relocated to the interior of the site to get those out of the easements. And then there was a condition, it is listed in your staff report, regarding maintenance of the private streets throughout the development. Those streets should be maintained to city standards. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about anything that I did not discuss that you find important.
Thank you. Just to clarify, when this first came to us, it was introduced with full vinyl, and now it is just in the decorative vinyl in the gables.
It is in the gables, yes, correct.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President, since there were no remonstrators at the Plan Commission, I would move that we approve ordinance number 6811-24 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to approve ordinance 681124 in second. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Sorry about that. Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thurston?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
No.
6 aye, 2 no. The ordinance is approved.
Thank you. Okay, before we get on to the last two items on the agenda, which I'm going to read together and introduce together, we are then going to have, just for everybody's reminder too, this is being recorded on Hamilton County Television. You can watch this tomorrow, or you can watch it later tonight to help you get to sleep. For Hamilton County Television and on YouTube. The presentation made by the developer tonight will also be on the city's website in the next day or two, which is not normally what we do. So the way this will work is the mayor is going to introduce the project, the developer is going to make their presentation, then we had our public hearing at the Plan Commission meeting. However, tonight we're going to open up for comments again. A lot of comments about the timing, and people didn't feel like they got a chance to speak or have all the information to speak, tell the full story. So we're going to open it up again tonight. You have 3 minutes to speak. If you're representing a group, please tell me that, and you get a little extra time, 5 minutes. Please be respectful of everyone and everyone's comments. I appreciate that. It'll go a little quicker. Try not to be repetitive. Obviously, if somebody speaks about the traffic study, if you could be at least unique in your comments about the traffic study, that will help us move along a little quicker. We've all had a chance to review the Plan Commission comments and meetings, so we've got those comments already. There's been several changes of the plan since the Plan Commission meeting. We're going to highlight those tonight as well, so please be open to those ideas and what we're going to see. And then at the December 7th, we're not going to vote tonight. We're going to take 2 more weeks to consider this matter. We will then, at the December 17th meeting, probably open it up again for any unique comments or anything we can't get resolved tonight. But please, again, limit those to the comments that we've not heard before. And then at the end of that, we'll have the comments. The developer will come back up again and answer any comments or questions that have come up that they've not heard before or weren't answered in the original presentation. And then the council will discuss the matter as well and answer and make sure that we have all the information we need from the developer and from city staff to make a decision in 2 weeks. So with that, Mayor Jensen, would you like to introduce this program? I got to read the ordinance first. That is correct. Thank you. I'm going to read both of them. It's a long one. Council to consider ordinance 721124, an ordinance for a change of zoning from R1 single-family residential to PB planned business and 11 light industrial. And light industrial to R3 single-family residential, R5 multifamily residential, and PB planned business for approximately 173 acres east and west of Hague Road and north and south of East 126th Street.
Move to introduce ordinance 7211-24.
Second. Also, council to consider ordinance 731124, an ordinance for a change of zoning from R3 single-family residential, R5 multifamily residential, and PB planned business to single-family residential, multifamily residential residential planned business planned development, R3, R5, PB, PD, including the adoption of a preliminary development plan and plan development ordinance, including waivers and conditions to be known as Morse Village Plan Development for approximately 173 acres east and west of Hague Road and north and south of East 126th Street.
Move to introduce ordinance number 7311-24.
Second. Mayor Jensen.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President and members of the council. Thank you for allowing me a little opportunity tonight to introduce this project. Before I get into the project details, I would like to just take a minute to add some context to the project and more specifically to the project area that we're going to discuss tonight. If you'll allow me to tell a little history of my life. My family moved to Noblesville in the early 70s from Indianapolis. My parents were transplants from North Central High School, and they're located on Elderberry Road in South Harbor, just a few hundred feet from Morris Reservoir. In 1983, my parents built a home in West Harbor, which is the home that I was brought home from the hospital to, and my mom still lives in that home today. I tell that story because I've been a West Sider for life. I've been living within a few hundred feet of Morris Reservoir most of my life. Growing up around that area, we always had a boat. Actually, if you're familiar with South Harbor, there used to be some docks adjacent to the South Harbor Clubhouse. That is where we were docked, and my mom, as at the time a single mother, would take us out during the week in the summertime. She was a teacher at Westfield High School, and so during the week we would go out and enjoy Morris Reservoir. I've oftentimes spoken about the reservoir as really an Eden for me, and now as an adult, I'm proud to say that I have a boat at the marina and can be found most Friday afternoons in the summertime out on that boat, oftentimes by myself, answering constituent emails, or sometimes there's just some peace about being called certain names on social media and reading it on the water. So I enjoy that time. I also enjoy taking my 4 kids now out who we used to be just floaters, but now we're boaters and we're tubers. And it's been a lot of fun as a parent to see my kids grow up on Morris Reservoir. I say all that because I take a particular interest in this part of the city. While I love all of Noblesville, I certainly am fond of the west side and of Morris Reservoir. So it's with that in mind that any project that comes before the city of Noblesville in and around Morris Reservoir is something of interest to me for personal reasons. The land that we're discussing tonight has been, had several developers over the years propose projects. Some of you have seen them before. The land has been for sale for some time, and many projects have come and quite frankly had not been the appropriate fit for that land. So I've thought over time what would be my metrics or my parameters that I would like to see for a project up near Morris Reservoir. And I landed really on 4 key priorities for me. One, I would not support any project that didn't have a traffic enhancement and a solution to 206th and Hague Road. As someone who sat there after the 4th of July fireworks this past summer, trying to turn left many times, as someone with a teenager that will be driving before too long, that intersection is one that has long been on our horizon as one that needed to be addressed. 2, I felt like it was essential for there to be one developer for all 3 parcels of land. I think that's important for the overall look and aesthetic of that area to make sure that we have a cohesive vision for in and around Morris Reservoir. 3, I felt like it was important that we had a high-end mix of uses that were reflective of Morris Reservoir, that had a high-end product that were complementary to the neighborhoods in and around the reservoir currently. And then 4, I wanted to see a housing product with options for our growing community and residents looking to downsize and move. And so it was several months ago in late spring that Lore Development brought what you're going to see tonight as Morris Village to the city of Noblesville, occupying and having options on all 3 parcels of land. What you'll see is Morris Village is a master plan mixed-use development located in the 206th and Hague Road area, and will consist of a variety of residential home options, including high-end single-family products such as detached homes, townhomes, and condos, as well as multifamily that complement the development as well. And as I mentioned, I think one of the best benefits to this project is it will allow for the acceleration of infrastructure improvements, including a roundabout at Hague Road and 206th Street. As you know, this project was announced at the State of the City address on September 17th. That's also available for online viewership at Hamilton County Television as well. And then was filed and has followed the normal process laid out through our development agreements. I appreciate Council President Peterson and the council agreeing to hear this in a non-traditional 2-meeting setting. I think it's important to allow time and continued communication. At the October 15th City Council meeting, you all approved an economic development agreement that outlined the financial structure of this project. And to quote a good friend of mine, Councilor Elliott, at that meeting, he said, "As you know, I'm supportive of this project. Not only does it address housing needs, but the 30,000 square feet plus in commercial is fantastic. I really like what you guys have done with this project." And I couldn't agree more, Councilor Elliott. The Plan Commission then had a public hearing, as we all know, and have forwarded this project on with a favorable recommendation. I want to acknowledge the many people that are here tonight in public, the many people who are tuning in online, the several people who reached out to me. I've answered every email, every phone call, every text message, every Facebook message personally. I have had the chance last week to spend nearly 2 hours in a home on Edgewater Drive, sipping some killer cider. Not killer, I'm still here, it wasn't killer, it was great. Cider at a home on Edgewater Drive to discuss and to listen and to learn about the perspective of neighbors. Just yesterday, myself as well as Councilor Thurston and Councilor Davis spent several hours at Harbor Trees as well, listening, learning, understanding the perspective of neighbors and residents in and around that area. I continue to listen and learn, our staff continues to do so, and I know you as city councilors continue to listen and learn as well. We've heard many areas of concern, such as water usage that will be addressed tonight, land values, traffic information that will all be addressed tonight by the Lohr Corporation. We've also heard about school capacity. I'm not an expert in really any one of those subjects, but I would like to talk briefly about school capacity because that is a topic that comes up quite often. We're fortunate to live in an amazing community with an awesome school district. I'm a proud Miller, as are many of you. We talk to our brethren at Noblesville schools just about every day, especially recently about 3 a.m. when we're getting a road update from our police department to see if those kids will love us or not in the morning with a 2-hour delay. Our street department continues to be stellar and doesn't require that, so kudos to them. But I can tell you that Noblesville Schools is alongside us and aware of all development that we propose in the city of Noblesville. In fact, there is a school board member on the Plan Commission, Joe Forgy. There are 2 school board members on the Redevelopment Commission. One is required by statute to be appointed by the school board and is a non-voting member. Several years ago, I took the extraordinary step to appoint Christy Crosser as an additional member to our Redevelopment Commission as a voting member. All of those have seen and approved this project. So I want to highlight that Noblesville Schools is well aware, and we continue to work with them closely on any capacity and demographic studies that they have going forward. But after many conversations and listening and learning, there are some areas that I have asked the developer to make some compromises and some adjustments on, particularly the West Point product. So I want to highlight a few of them tonight, and then I'm going to allow them to highlight several more as well. I have personally asked on the north end of the townhome development of West Point to limit the buildings directly adjacent, actually it's about a football field to the south of Kerrigan at the levee there, to 2 stories in height. Those buildings will be restricted to 2 stories in height on the north end of the townhomes. On the far south end of the development of West Point, there are 4 condo buildings. The original plan called for a parking pad and then 4 additional stories on top of that for residential. I have asked, and the developer has agreed to a parking pad and 3 stories of residential, lowering the height of that southern condo building. Additionally, I've asked for increased buffering along tree lines between Edgewater Drive and the West Point development. Those are a few things I wanted to highlight. I will also encourage Laura to highlight them again tonight because I think it's important that we all hear some of the adjustments that we're making at tonight's meeting. I also want to point out that the process that this has been going through from the Plan Commission to now is designed exactly for this moment. It's designed to hear feedback, to make adjustments, to work with the developer, to listen to the community. And I appreciate all of you doing that. I appreciate our city staff doing that. And I most importantly appreciate the residents who conducted themselves in a civil, meaningful way and were willing to have conversations with us, as we have had so many of those recently. I believe this project is a great project for the city of Noblesville. I also understand that not everyone will agree with that statement, and it won't be perfect for everyone. I believe this project will make Noblesville better, not only in the short term, but for future Millers as well. And with that, Mr. President, I'll turn the microphone over to our partners at Lohr Development to continue the presentation, but thank you for allowing me to introduce this tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jensen. For the record, Adam Hill with Lohr Corporation. I have Phil Sumling with me tonight as well with Lohr Corporation. Part of our team is with us as well, Eric Douthit, Andy Work with Church Heddle and Antrim, Amanda Johnson with EMCS, who did the traffic engineering, and also Structure Point, Nick Everhart is with us tonight.
I won't spend a lot of time on the location. You're all very familiar with the location. Again, this is the gateway, northwest Noblesville, into the Morris Reservoir area. Very important area, and an area that we take great pride in the efforts and the master planning that we've put into this overall development. On the sub-areas, we have North Point, South Point, and West Point. We'll go through details. Phil will walk through the details of each of those. We encourage you to interject, interrupt. Sometimes questions get forgotten or get missed, so feel free to ask questions throughout the entire presentation.
Thanks, Adam. Again, for the record, Phil Sundling with the Lure Corporation. First, we have North Point. This is roughly 40 acres located north of 206th Street, east of Hague Road. This is the commercial and mixed-use hub of the development. It will include neighborhood-style commercial along the western frontage. Let me add the pointer. Along that western frontage that will wrap down along Hague Road. Additionally, we're planning 250 to 300 multifamily flats to the east, internal to what we call Loop Road. East of that, in green there, we're planning roughly 40 single-family detached for sale product to buffer from the future development to the east. This will be kind of a unique urban-style home, rear load or alley-fed. And finally, to the south, we're planning roughly 50 3- or 4-story townhomes along 206th Street as a buffer or a step down to South Point, which I'll get into momentarily. North Point property is currently zoned PB, planned business, and will maintain that underlying zoning through the rezone process. The comprehensive plan for this ground notes 3 different types of land uses, including residential, mixed residential, and neighborhood commercial. These uses from the comp plan align perfectly with what we were planning here, as you saw on the previous slide, and as noted in the city staff report. Next, we have South Point, which is roughly 114 acres and will be our premier single-family neighborhood community. This property is currently zoned I-1 light industrial. And just to give you some context, the permitted uses in I-1 zoning district include things like contractors' offices with equipment storage and material storage, distribution facilities, food production facilities, equipment repair service centers, and light manufacturing, just to name a few. We fully recognize this existing zoning is not the desired future use as contemplated in the comp plan, and we certainly have no intention to develop the ground in this way. However, what we would like to do is to develop it into a wonderful, well-connected, highly amenitized, master plan residential neighborhood with extensive trails, green spaces, higher-end homes exceeding what Noblesville has traditionally seen in the past. We're planning a mix of 50-foot, 70-foot, and 90-foot lots, around 200 in total on this property, and we expect values to start in the high 400s and approach all the way up to $1 million. As part of South Point, we will be extending the sanitary sewer interceptor from the southeast corner of the site, and we've coordinated this design effort with Jim Hellman and his engineering team. This extension will serve not only our development, but also future development in the area. It'll also allow for the old temporary lift station along Hague Road to be retired and served purely with gravity sewer. Our last sub-area, which we're calling West Point, we recognize is the primary driver of questions and concerns, and probably why the room is filled tonight. I know there's been a lot of misleading information going around the community, which is certainly unfortunate. However, I want to talk through in detail this evening more accurate information, which should dispel many of the myths that are circulating. West Point is roughly 23 acres. It's currently zoned R1 and will be rezoned to R5 as part of our petition. Despite the misinformation being represented by the remonstrance group, the comprehensive plan denotes 3 different land uses for this property, including residential, mixed residential, and neighborhood commercial. And as you'll see here shortly, what we are planning here on West Point aligns perfectly with what is contemplated in the comprehensive plan and as noted in the city staff report. West Point will include roughly 135 units, including townhomes ranging from 2 to 4 stories, along with condo units. This is very contrary to the petition that is circulating, which states 300 units on this property. And as Mayor mentioned, we are fully committed to reducing the heights of the condo buildings down a full floor to 3 stories livable, over ground level parking for a total of 4 stories, which are noted here in blue. Additionally, as Mayor mentioned, we've worked with neighbors to the north, and we've agreed to reduce the northernmost townhomes, as you can see here in yellow, to 2 stories max. This community will be highly walkable, as noted as a requirement in the comprehensive plan, with connections to the Levee Trail, along with connections to both North and South Point. It will also have access to recreational opportunities through on-site amenities, as well as connectivity to the parks and green spaces elsewhere in the Noblesville community. Again, what we are planning here on West Point aligns perfectly with what is contemplated in the comprehensive plan. As many of you know, we hosted a neighborhood meeting on Wednesday, November 6th, and held our Plan Commission public hearing on November 18th. Similar to this evening, these meetings were very well attended. Most of the discussion centered around West Point specifically, as neighbors voiced their concerns over various topics like proximity, density, parking, traffic, environmental impacts, drainage, land uses, and new development in general. We addressed every single one of those issues the evening of the Plan Commission hearing and left with a unanimous 10-0 favorable recommendation. Tonight, I'd like to walk you through many of these same topics, starting first with proximity of West Point to the existing adjacent homes. We spent considerable time analyzing the worst-case scenarios from the north, from the west, and from the southwest of our development. And as you can see here on this slide, the closest existing home to the north will be roughly 330 feet away from our northernmost townhomes, which is equal to the distance of a professional football field, as Mayor noted. This includes a 5-acre parcel that is outside of West Point to our adjacent north, separating our development from Kerrigan at the Levee. Again, we received a request from the neighbors to the north to reduce these townhomes to a maximum of 2 stories along our north property line, which we fully vetted, discussed with Mayor and city staff, and have agreed to make this commitment to this adjustment. Additionally, after the November 18th Plan Commission meeting, we had a homeowner reach out from the same neighborhood to the north and request an adjustment to our north buffer. We have agreed to this adjustment, which includes doubling the number of trees and planting a mix of conifers along this north property line to help increase the density of the buffer. These adjustments were relayed to city staff and will be incorporated into our PD ordinance. This is a scaled exhibit created from the corner of Kerrigan at the Levee property facing south toward West Point. In the foreground is the 5-acre parcel separating our property from theirs, along with the enhanced buffer, along with the 2-story townhomes behind those. To the west, our closest neighbor will be roughly 245 feet away. This area will be naturally buffered with existing preserved trees, a mix of newly planted conifers and deciduous trees, as well as the Levee Trail, which sits roughly 13 feet higher than the ground to the east, as you can see here. This rendering here shows what the homes along Edgewater will be viewing from their side of the street. This was a photo taken from the west side of Edgewater, and then we added the buffer on the back side along with the townhomes there beyond those.
Yeah, I might go back to that one real quick. I think what's important here as well is the city right-of-way closest on the far west side of the Levee Trail, you'll see right next to the street, there's 2 trees there. Those trees provide a really good buffer. You can see the tree on the right, there's a 4-story townhome behind that you can barely see versus the townhome to the left of that tree. We are totally open to sitting down with the residents along Edgewater and the city to plant more trees in there that may provide even a more effective buffer from a visual standpoint of the townhomes on the other side of the levee.
And lastly, to the southwest, our closest neighbor will be roughly 1,084 feet away, which is just short of a quarter mile. And as you can see here in these exhibits, there's really no reasonable concern for proximity. And this is another rendering facing northeast from Cherokee Lane. Condos in the background on the right, here, townhomes here in the brown with the brown roofs, and then the existing homes here on the left. One question that we received since the Plan Commission meeting is regarding single-family detached homes. Why not single-family on West Point? On paper, it makes sense to explore this type of home, so I can certainly understand the question. However, in reality, single-family detached homes simply aren't a great fit for a number of reasons. First, we are designing this community to be higher end. In order to achieve higher end, certain components are necessities, one of which is capturing views. Rear yard living is a critical component, and the 13-foot earthen levee restricts the ability to get views from this site without going vertical. Verticality is the primary reason townhomes and condos are such a better fit for this piece of ground. Additionally, basements are another standard element for higher-end single-family detached homes. In our case, we're dealing with granular soils and a perched water table. Thus, basements are not feasible without importing extensive fill materials to build the ground up. If we did import 10 to 15 feet of fill, not only is that financially unviable, but it would also necessitate the complete destruction of the existing amenities on the site, including the wetlands and the trees that we've worked so hard to preserve. This is not something we would ever want to do to such a beautiful piece of property, and I'm sure the folks in this room would not want to see that happen either. Lastly, in high-quality master plan communities, it's very important to include a mix of diverse housing options. It promotes vibrancy and true community. At Morks Village, we have higher-end single-family detached covered with South Point, and we have commercial and urban living covered in North Point. What we are missing are the empty nester and young professional groups, both of which desire low-maintenance living, and that is where West Point fits in perfectly with townhomes and condominiums. Another question we have been asked, is there a market for West Point? Another great question. For all the reasons I noted on the previous slide, there absolutely is and will be a market for West Point. We know that most empty nesters and young professionals want to live in low-maintenance communities. Additionally, based on the data we have available, over the past 12 months, 21 condo or townhome units along Morse Reservoir have been sold, ranging from $150 a square foot to over $334 a square foot. There's only a single unit available in Waterscape right now, which is on the market for $305 a square foot. There's also one unit available in the Bluffs on the west side, which is on the market for $226 a square foot. These types of homes are highly sought after, and we feel very confident about the townhome and condo market here. Another question we've been asked, will West Point have a negative impact on home values? The short answer is absolutely not. We initially performed our own analysis and shared that at the Plan Commission hearing on November 18th. Since then, we've hired an independent consultant, Integra Realty Resources, to perform a comprehensive study to analyze the value impact of the proposed West Point development to the existing adjacent homes. Their analysis and 96-page report were developed in compliance with the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, the Appraisal Institute's Code of Professional Ethics, and applicable Indiana law. Basically, all this means is that they were done professionally and it was done without bias. The report's final opinions are very clear. West Point will not have a negative impact on the values of adjacent homes. The future value increase for these adjacent homes will not be negatively impacted. And lastly, future assessments for adjacent homes will not be negatively impacted. This is a summary of their conclusions. As you can see here, increases of 8.8% for adjacent homes versus 7.7% for non-adjacent homes. Similar results from the assessment side, 6.8 versus 6.7%. And they also compared this to the Hamilton County average, which was 6.9% over the past 8 years. Again, this data is very clear. There is no reasonable concern regarding the property values of adjacent homes. Each member of this council was provided a copy of this 96-page report. David Hall, Managing Director with IRR, who completed this report, is here tonight and is available to answer any specific questions regarding property values. Next, density within West Point. It's been another concern we've heard from neighbors. We performed analysis of 8 townhome and condo communities throughout Hamilton County, some of which are located on Morse Reservoir. The average density of these 8 developments came out to be 10.6 units per acre. At West Point, we're currently at 6.6 units per acre, which is roughly 38% lower than the townhome condo communities we studied. Just another representation of responsible development. Parking, next. We received a number of questions about parking in our community, particularly West Point. Simply put, Noblesville requires 2 spaces per unit for what they call zero lot line dwelling units, better known as townhomes. We are not seeking a waiver from this requirement, and will meet or exceed that here at West Point. Another concern we've heard from residents was regarding the impact from added traffic, which, as you are very familiar with, is a common concern for new developments. As part of Morse Village, and as typical with all new developments in Noblesville, we performed a comprehensive traffic analysis in coordination with the requirements of the Noblesville engineering staff. This study included the analysis of existing traffic counts in addition to the added traffic from our development, coupled with projected growth factors to determine what, if any, improvements are needed as a result of our project. The findings of this study determined that turning lanes will be required at every new entrance into the development. It also determined that a roundabout would be warranted at the intersection of 206 and Hague, which we'll be constructing in partnership with the city as part of our development. Additionally, segment analysis was performed along Hague Road and 206th Street, and added travel lanes from 2 to 4 lanes were determined not to be warranted. However, we have committed to Noblesville to widen the existing lanes along Hague Road, 206th, and James Road to meet Noblesville standards for safer, more efficient mobility along these roadways. And lastly, we've committed to relocating the utility poles further away from travel lanes, again, for purposes of safety. Amanda Johnson, our engineer from EMCS, is here again tonight. She'd be happy to answer any questions this evening regarding traffic. Next, environmental concerns over the loss of wetlands. I know a lot of folks in this room signed a petition with information that was obviously not researched or vetted very well. We have performed environmental analysis on the properties within Morse Village, and roughly 4.4 acres of wetlands were delineated. Through the initial design process, we worked deliberately and extensively to preserve as many of these wetlands as possible. As a result of our efforts, we were able to preserve 89% of the wetlands on site, which is a tremendous success from a development standpoint. The unavoidable wetlands that we are impacting will, of course, be mitigated in accordance with all government requirements, generally at ratios or multipliers in the 2 times to 4 times range. The end goal, of course, is to leave the environment in a better condition than what it was before we started. We've also received some questions from neighbors on the process and whether we've coordinated our efforts through IDEM and the Army Corps. Once we're through the zoning process, the next step will be to advance the engineering plans and submit our impacts and permit applications to the necessary government agencies. This is the normal process. There are laws that govern these features, and these groups have very, very strict rules, both federal and state, all of which we absolutely will follow to a T. We've hired Bree Hope and her team at American Structure Point, frankly, one of the most respected consultants in the environmental industry, to handle these efforts for us. Unfortunately, Bree is unable to join us tonight, but I'd be happy to take any questions regarding wetlands back to her for formal responses. Another item to note, we've been asked about this area being in a floodplain. As noted in the staff report and confirmed by American Structure Point, our property is protected by the levee and is not located within the floodplain, thus no floodplain impacts. We've also received some inquiries about the water supply for our development. We will be served by public water mains through Citizens Energy Group. CEG, as they're known, is governed by the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, or the IURC. There are rules and laws these utilities are required to abide by, and we will be in lockstep with them to abide by the same rules. Most importantly, addressing the concerns from neighbors, CEG did have their hydraulics group review our development and confirm that they have available capacity in the area, so no concerns there from CEG. And finally, as you all are well aware, there's an existing bald eagle's nest on the northwest corner of South Point. We've spent considerable time researching bald eagle habitat, coordinating with various permitting agencies, including the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which is the primary governing agency for the protection of bald eagles. We've also consulted with American Structure Point's environmental group to assist us with these efforts. I want to be very clear, the eagles living in this nest are wild animals, and as much as we all would like, we simply cannot control them. However, we have a wonderful, well-thought-out plan to responsibly develop this property and have designed it in such a way to minimize any impacts to this nest. We've incorporated into our plan a 330-foot buffer and a 5-acre passive park centered around the nest, which will include a peripheral trail with strategically located overlook areas. These areas will include benches for resting, commercial-grade binoculars for viewing, and informational signage for learning. We have and will continue to work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to ensure that we are following their recommendations. This unique centerpiece is a vital part of our community, and we deeply understand its importance to each and every one of you. Thank you all again, and if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. We'll go on to public comment and come back with our questions. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak unless you're representing a group. Also, if you could give me your name and address when you come up here. Thank you. We'll start with Mackenzie Lyons, and on deck is Monica McCoskey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Lyons. I'm an attorney at Paganelli Law Group. The address for my firm is 10401 North Meridian Street, Suite 450, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm here today on behalf of TerraCorp LLC, which is an owner of land that will be affected by this development. As we've heard today, this development will contain hundreds of units and townhomes and is expected to bring in an influx of new residents in the area. The golf course has been advertised as a nearby amenity for the new residents to enjoy. However, this golf course has concerns about the sustainability of the development, especially if it is being advertised as a nearby amenity. The membership is currently full and includes a 2-year wait list. Therefore, it is not easily available to incoming residents for this development, especially at this number. Moreover, the influx of residents as well as the patrons to the commercial side of the development poses great concerns about the implications on nearby roads and businesses. The already heavily trafficked area will inevitably become unmanageable, especially if the proposed plans and infrastructure are insufficient. There is no independent review of the traffic or parking implications caused by this development, and the influx of people will strain current businesses like the golf course, as these businesses are not equipped to handle hundreds of new people coming into the area. There has been nothing proposed as to what Morse Village will do to provide the sustainability of its existing businesses in the area and to help the infrastructure to account for the influx of new people to the area. The project feels rushed, and the surrounding business owners and landowners are greatly concerned about the long-term impacts of this development. There has not been adequate times for these landowners and business owners to properly assess the long-term effects. We ask that the City Council deny this proposed request today, or next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica McCoskey. Lynette Jones, you're on deck.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President and members of the City Council. My name is Monica McCoskey. I am also an attorney with Paganelli Law Group, and I am here as counsel for Harbor Trees Golf and Beach Club, a place many of the people in this room, including several of you in front of me, love to enjoy. Harbor Trees made a commitment to its members and the community to protect the golf course and beach club from avoidable harm like this very proposed development. A similar commitment all of you up here made to your community to uphold the people's interests and preserve the land in accordance with the UDO and comprehensive plan. Of particular concern here is the negative impact the proposed development will have on water, given Harbor Trees is a business that literally cannot function without an adequate water supply, requiring millions of gallons of water each year to maintain the greens and its operation. The aquifer is fed by the wetlands. They filter and regenerate the water supply. The wetlands protect the land from flooding. They control erosion, provide a unique habitat for the wildlife population, so on and so on. But the proposed development stands to remove more of what the White River Alliance and Hoosier Environmental Council have already urged local governments to protect and preserve. How does the council square such directly unsupported destruction? And additionally, Lore Corporation has not submitted its own studies at this time on the water impacts its development will have, and the remonstrators were denied a completely valid and legally supported request for a continuance to explore this impact themselves. So we look where we can. The Indiana Development Finance Authority spent millions on a water study in Hamilton County, given the alarming increase in water usage associated with zoning changes like this very proposed development. The results, the more people in a small area, the more water used. The development of the land dramatically transforms the soil, reducing its capacity to perform essential functions. Any rainfall that becomes contaminated by the dirt, dust, debris of construction degrades the hydrological system. And more pavement means less water soaking into the ground, diminishing the underground water table and making it impossible for wells, like the 2 harbor trees and several residents here today, use to get water. So in 5 to 10 years, when the wells dry up, what's the solution? Dig further and let the businesses and residents suffer? Who's going to pay for that massive undertaking? I can tell you who it will not be, and that's Lohr Corporation. So members of the council, you flipped through several, hundreds and hundreds of opposition petitions. You've heard the remonstrance at the community meeting and the Plan Commission meeting, in your own meetings with members of the community, and here tonight. This responsibility falls on you as members of the City Council to deny Lohr Corporation's rezone request, or at the very least, pump the brakes. Somebody has to. Require Lohr Corporation to sacrifice, balance, as Mayor Jensen just said, listen, make adjustments, and do the work required to warrant deviation from the commitment you all made to the members of your community to protect them from such impending irreparable harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Annette Jones. And on deck is Harbor Trees. I think it's Andy Giganti.
Lynette Jones, 507 Westchester in Noblesville. I have 3 points I'd kind of like to make tonight, plus the report you guys were talking about here from an appraiser company, 96 pages. Obviously, that was not shared with the community. It would be nice if we would also be able to review that information. So all I can speak to is what we were told a month ago.
1 second, Mr. Hughes.
Mr. President, we do have extra copies, not a lot, 'cause it's a 96-page report. We do have a few extra copies, and anyone who would like one would be happy to email it out. So it'll be available. And it was just given to us today. So the
And that'll be
council's
posted
reviewing
on the
it as well.
website, on the city's website.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just, the council just received it today, so they'll be reviewing it.
Okay. Well, 96 pages takes a bit of time to read. So the only thing I can discuss is what we were told at the last meeting that Adam Hill spoke on 11/18. He provided property values from Zillow and did not consult with local realtors or appraisers at that point in time. Per Zillow website, Indiana active listing accuracy is only within 5% of sales, comes in at 73.97%. So by him not consulting with local realtors or appraisers, there could be a variance of up to 31% of a total value. Number 2, my name, Lynette Jones. I'm an Indiana certified appraiser for 30 years. There is a disconnect between policymakers' housing's aspirations and market realities. Data tells a different story. I do listings, I do run whole stats every morning since I've been in this field. But I just looked back, Hamilton County active listings, October 2021, there were 218 to 275 daily. November of 2021, this dipped to a maximum of 175 daily. Okay, now let's fast forward from 21 to 2024. Currently, in Hamilton County, October and November of 2024, there are 630 to 700 listings daily. There is no shortage of listings in Hamilton County. Mortgage rates are now higher after the last Federal Reserve rate decrease. Builders pulled back when rates are 6.5% and higher. Builders use concessions or design credit center credits and rate buy-downs. The last 2 new construction appraisal points reports that I have completed here locally, concessions amounted to $30,000 and $11,000 on new construction. And just yesterday, breaking news through the Kabisi letter I read, new home sales have declined 17.3% month over month, the largest decline in 13 years. Inflation has created too much money chasing too fewer goods, and this inflation has also hit residential and new building. The 30-year mortgage rate is reported at 7.03% yesterday. Rising interest rates has cooled building activity. And this, along with you seeing the concessions that I'm seeing in every report and everyone I'm talking to other appraisers, is happening. And then 3, I'd like to also quickly address, I mean, I could go on, but we only have 3 minutes. So the other thing I wanted to address was builders add a site premium to lots that have enhancements, which included private wooded views, water views, and golf course views. Home sites that currently have these enhancements would be affected in a negative dollar adjustment when new construction removes the view. This is when these people refinance or go to sell their house in the future, they're going to get hit on the negative. Now is not the time to move forward to build what is not wanted or needed.
Thank you. Andy Gianni, and on deck is Roger Carlson.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. President of the City Council and council members, my name is Andy Giganti. I am the owner of Harbor Trees Golf and Beach Club. I'm also the owner of the golf course, and I suppose we also own about 200 acres to the west of this development. You know, I'm going to try not to be long-winded because I sometimes can, and believe me, this is really interesting because I have friends in front of me, and we just simply disagree. Doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable. In 2010, 2011, Harbor Trees was in financial trouble. Bank had called our note. The community was very much concerned about which direction we were going to go. We got this great opportunity on the lake, and I was in front of you 14, 15 years ago, if my math is right, 14 years ago, to talk about the construction of the beach club. You were kind enough to give us the approval on that, and it was at the site, for those that aren't familiar with it, it was at the site of the old North Harbor Clubhouse, which basically had been abandoned since 1994. That site was repurposed, the old clubhouse was torn down, and we built the beach club. We asked for a tax abatement at the time and were denied because we were a private club. I'm very proud to say that we paid all of our taxes for those years, real estate taxes, and I think we've raised the taxes, the tax revenue for the city substantially in North Harbor and Oak Bay and the surrounding areas. A lot of these folks contributed a great deal to that. We're here now, and we have some concerns. Obviously, my number one concern is the condition of the golf course. I made a commitment to the members and the community and to Pete Dye, and I talked with you guys about this yesterday. I played golf with Pete Dye. This is one of his original works. It's like a work of art to golfers and to the golf community. We've had Golf Digest out to look at it. The commitment I made to him is that I would be the best steward possible. And so I have to represent it as passionately as possible. The golf course has 2 wells that we draw water off of. You're right, the folks that said millions of gallons of water, it is. Those 2 wells we monitor all the time, certainly during the season, and then we have periodic static tests that we engage in. Those wells are essential to the function of the golf course. So water is like the blood of a golf course, and you guys have a couple golf courses, you know this. And then the irrigation system is basically your veins and your arteries. I'm in the medical business too, so forgive me. And our pumping system would be basically like the heart, right? And we have to get that water out of the ground. Logic tells me that we're having questions about the water levels. I'm concerned about these wetlands. I think this is being a little, I know this project is not new to you all, but it is new to us. It's new to me. And so I haven't seen enough data, enough information to really assess what the impact is. My fear is that several years from now, we might be in a situation where I cannot keep those promises to the members, the community, and to Pete Dye. And at that time, if it's years down the road and we must adjust our water by going deeper into the ground, possibly incurring huge expenses. These are not small expenses. You guys know that too. When it comes to owning a golf course or anything like this, if you even play the game of golf, and I know this sounds like first world problems, whatever you think it's going to be, the zeros come after that. So we have some concerns based on the fact that somewhere down the road we could have an unfunded mandate. The Lohr Corporation, I'm sorry, I think they're fine, they're probably fine people, and obviously you all, I think very highly of too. But we simply don't know what we don't know. And because forgive me, I just learned about this a few weeks ago. When these meetings were announced, I was on a trip. And when I came back, I read the IBJ, and my jaw hit the floor. I thought, wow, I haven't really even studied this or had very many conversations about it. I'm opposed to this.
Thank you, Mr. Gigante. If you could wrap it up.
I will. I'm opposed to this. I'm also a homeowner, and I live right there in North Harbor with these folks. I'm going to ask you to vote no. Doesn't mean that we can't come back and talk about these things down the road, but I would ask you to vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Carlson and Daniel Schwartz is on deck. Daniel Schwartz is on deck.
You might hear a small chime. I'm going to try to make it louder. That is 3 minutes. I'm doing it on a watch here. So if you could please keep that in mind, we would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Roger Carlson. I live at 102 Chaucer Circle in North Harbor. 206th Street is currently a county road. It's not in the Noblesville city limits. So the county highway department the county has a thoroughfare plan, and it calls for 206th Street to be 4 lanes with a median. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. Good. That was good. Daniel Schwartz and James Moore is on deck.
My name is Daniel Schwartz. I live at 123 Cherokee Lane. I've actually sent an email to all of you, and I'd like to thank those of you that took the time to respond to me. I'm the southern neighbor that they say doesn't make any difference across the levee, across the bay there, across the cove. And the thought that that's not going to, the 5-story or 4-story now buildings is not going to affect my property value just doesn't make any sense. The one thing I asked all of you to do in my email was to walk the trail and imagine a 4 or 5-story building with a 20-foot setback from that trail. And how does that make the zoning make sense? That this is an improvement to the neighborhood, that this is harmonious to what the existing neighborhood is. And all I want you to do is take your time to consider the neighborhood as it is, and the addition of high-impact housing, 3, 4, 5 stories tall, just doesn't make sense right at the edge of the lake. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. James Moore and Russ French is on deck.
I'm James Moore, 131 Edgewater Drive. I spent the last 27 years representing a county area plan commission. So zoning planning is something I'm familiar with. And good planning is essential to beneficial growth in your community. Uses need to be harmonious and complementary. The transition from uses should not be stark and abrupt, but they should be more gentle. And what we have in West Point is a very stark and abrupt change. I mean, we were talking about 4 and 5, now we're talking 5, 4, and maybe only 2 at the north end. My house, one of the things that when they're showing the angle from the street, if you walk down that street, all the houses are up.
It's not me.
Okay. So actually, my house, when I walk out the front door, I'm at the top of the levee. So there is no buffering by the levee. And what they're talking about will be 2 or 3 stories above the levee. So we're talking about a very great difference in mass, in height, and in density of population between these 2 neighborhoods. And quite frankly, in planning, that's not something you work for, you work to avoid. And there isn't much land here in West Point, really, especially when you take in the ponds and that. So there really isn't a lot of room for buffers. And the problem is and I was discussing this with my county's planning commission director. She said, 4 stories you can't buffer because you can't get a tree high enough. And that's where we are. So I would urge you spent a lot of money on your plan. You have a good plan. And you have a plan that says this really should be single-family residential. They admitted they could do single-family residential with dirt moving. I believe that, I wasn't here when they built my neighborhood, but I believe that's how all our houses, because we all have walkout basements that are, so I believe they could do the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wes French. And Jim Collins is on deck.
My name is Russ French, and I live at 135 Edgewater Drive. So to give you some idea where that's at, if you take the West Point perspective and you look east, there's an open space right in front of my house. It's about 100 yards wide. Trees on the other side of the levee, trees on the other side of the levee, 100 yards. I'm at the 50-yard line. Okay? So I have a direct view of everything that is going on in the West Point development. I've changed my presentation a little bit tonight. A lot of things have been said, but one thing I want to make clear. When we bought our house, that area was zoned R1. It's now going to an R5. I would not have bought that house if there were 4-story and 5-story condos across the street. In my younger day, I could have walked out my front door and thrown a baseball and hit what are now going to be 4- and 5-story condos. I applaud the developer for making some of the changes. Absolutely the right move. Unfortunately, we left out several houses that have that 100-yard wide perspective. The individual preceding my presentation talked about the view. So the view from the top of the 5-story condo looks right in my front door. That angle that you show on the presentation That's a direct view in my front door, plus several neighbors. Okay? The other comment I want to enforce or reinforce, the trees in the presentation look to be several years old, 30 years old, maybe more. I don't think we're going to put 40-foot trees between me and those condos. Okay. I sure as hell would like to be here when that happens, but I don't think I'm going to be. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I've been on that side of the fence. Prior years, coat and tie was my dress code. Tonight, I thought I'd take the mayor look and put on the vest. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Russ, do you have a dog that sits in your garage? Is that which house yours is?
No, that's Jay.
That's Jay there. Gotcha, okay. Trying to figure out which one's which. Thank you.
Jim Collins and Rob Larkin is on deck.
You're all invited. Drive by my house and talk about this anytime between now and 2 weeks. It'll be the development.
If it's above 15 degrees, I'll walk there every single day.
Resetting my time.
If it's under 15, I don't.
I can warm you up.
Hello, my name is Jim Collins. I live at 298 Watershed Court in Noblesville, which is on the lake. And unlike some of the people who have spoken, actually this development won't directly impact me because I've already looked and it's going to be on the side of my house, and I probably won't be able to see it quite the same way as some of the others. But I've come to speak out against it, even though I recognize that there's a couple of key stakeholders, and I realize that probably the most important stakeholder we all have to consider are the citizens directly impacted by these types of decisions and the development. But we also have to consider what's best for the city of Noblesville, because there's obviously some real needs, and I'm not going to debate those with you. And we also have to consider the needs of the developer, which I'm sure is trying to find a path forward here that can work. But with that being said, I kind of came to two questions, and I'd ask each of you to ask these two questions, because when I did, I came to the conclusion that we should vote against this current proposal. First question is, would I want this approved if it was going across the street from my house? The answer was no. I don't really want to look out the house and see a 5-story, a 4-story, or a 3-story condo. As the previous speaker highlighted, we each bought into Noblesville with the belief that the elected representatives were looking out for our benefit, and there was a plan, and that plan would not be changed, and wouldn't be changed in a way that was negative to our home values and to the future of our personal situation. Second question that I have to ask is this really the best solution that balances the needs of the three stakeholders? Does this really optimize the balance between what's best for the individuals that have clearly spoken about how this, if approved as it's defined, going to have a tremendously negative impact? Unless the laws of supply and demand don't happen to apply to that part of Noblesville, obviously it's going to have a negative impact. Those trees are probably going to lose their leaves, unless I was mistaken in the way the weather is. I mean, this is, and we can get a consultant that'll put a proposal together that'll pretty much define anything that we want it to say. So I think we have to rely on the basic elements of common sense. Would we want this approved if it was across the street from us? And does this proposal represent the best proposal that balances all those needs? And I came to the conclusion, even after hearing the presentation, I appreciate the work of the mayor, that there's a lot of work that still has to be done to balance those out. Now, like a lot of people, I have to say I've become tremendously disillusioned with our politicians in Washington, believing that they would sell us out in a heartbeat for the biggest donor. At the same time, I've come to believe that local politicians are different because they live here and they look out for the people and they put the people first and they put the city next and then they put the big money third. I'd ask when you vote for this that you prove me right and don't prove me wrong. Because at the end of the day, if we come to the conclusion that our elected representatives aren't looking out for us, we're going to have to find new elected representatives.
Rob Larkin and Marcia Zeller is on deck.
Good evening. My name is Rob Larkin. I live at 609 Coventry in North Harbor. I have been looking at this proposal for probably a week and a half. My biggest concern is that I think that the traffic improvements must be done before any construction starts here. Now, the other gentleman mentioned that 206 should be a 4-lane. That makes a lot of sense between Hague and 19. And Hague needs to be expanded too. This is critical because we have a fire station right there, and their ability to be able to respond to calls can't be compromised in any way. So the traffic stuff needs to get done first. But in the overall, I am opposed to this project, especially don't like the west section in any way. Thank you.
Marcia Zeller and Mike Ramos is on deck.
Good evening. My name is Marcia Zeller, and I am a resident at 509 Current Drive in South Harbor. So this development does not impact my residents directly, but I'd like to address the concerns about the bald eagle's nest. I can't tell you how much excitement I feel when I drive up Hague Road, and my husband and I have a boat at Morse, so we are up there quite often, and see those eagles in the trees or in their nest. They are awe-inspiring, they inspire patriotism, feelings of nationalism, just overall wonderful feelings. And I feel like this development could be built anywhere, on any property around Noblesville. Why do we have to build it where there is a nesting bald eagle habitat? It could be relocated to another area and be just as beneficial to the city, if in fact you feel it's beneficial to the city, which I don't feel that way personally. I'd also like to mention something which no one else has addressed. Lohr Corporation is requesting a lot of waivers to build these buildings. Among them, reduction of the landscape buffer, reduction of the minimum lot area, reduction of the minimum lot width, increasing the maximum building height from 45 feet to 75 feet, that's 5 stories. I realize you've adjusted that to 4 stories. Reduction of the minimum front yard to 0, reduction of the minimum side yard to 0, reduction of the floor area ratio to 0, and that's just for the residential. It's similar for the commercial standards. Building setback is supposed to be 60 feet, according to the code. They want that removed completely, so they can build very close to the roadways. And they're also saying no landscaping should be required. That, to me, does not improve the look of the area. So I would ask that you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Ramos and Lee Putnam is on deck.
Good evening. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of research to share.
Can you share your name and your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Michael Ramos. I live at 7372 Chipwood Drive. My house is over by the entrance to Morris Lake Park, so I'm, like several other people, not directly affected, other than it's not too far from where I live. As I said, I'm sorry I don't have a very good research or anything to present, but what I can tell you is sort of the word on the street, the people that I know, the people around me, who are all vehemently opposed to this development. And part of the reason is Noblesville has grown in leaps and bounds in a short time. And I'm sure all of you know part of the character of Noblesville is that it was a small town, small, quiet town. Now, I understand there's going to be growth. That's inevitable. But it's just blowing up. And it's really killing the character. So I'll tell you a little of my history. I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana. I was a region rat until we moved here in 2013. And have you ever been to Gary? Yeah. So when we drove so we looked all over. We came here for work. We looked all over. We looked in Carmel, we looked in Fishers, we looked in Westville, we looked in Avon. We got to Noblesville and we were like, wow, this is a paradise. Look at all these trees. Look at all this open space. It wasn't the nicest house that we looked at, but it was the nicest area we found. So we moved here, and we have loved it. But we're loving it less these days because we don't want to go the way of Carmel. We don't want to go the way of Fishers. The rampant development, the loss of everything that made this place special is going to hurt it in the long run. And I talked to Mayor Jensen this afternoon. One of his arguments, he's obviously, he approves of this development idea. One of his points was that if a town stagnates, if it doesn't grow, it dies. Well, that's not always necessarily true. It dies when there's no source of income, there's no industry. There's plenty of industry in this area. The desire for the existing living spaces in Noblesville is adequate. And actually that desire, the desire to be in an area close to those industries but still have Noblesville character actually makes the value higher. And the more we develop it, it's actually in the long run, I think, going to hurt the value of Noblesville. And trust me, coming from a place where when an industry leaves and you're left with a lot of empty places, a lot of empty residences, it gets ugly. So I'm going to say vote no, please.
Thank you. Lee Putnam and Deb Police is on deck.
Good evening, Mr. President, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Lee Putnam. We live at 123 Edgewater Drive in Noblesville. We bought our home in bought our house in April of 2010 on kind of a quiet street in a cul-de-sac community. We are deeply concerned about the Morse development, in particular the West Point component of that. You know, there are 36 Lakefoot homes on Edgewater Drive. I know that because I counted them today. I would suspect, and over the course of the time, I've watched our neighbors put hundreds of thousands of dollars in improvement and maintaining their homes. And I would probably bet that in all of Noblesville, we probably have some of the highest average price homes of any street in the city. And I can't understand for the life of me why you would put 4-story condominiums directly across the street from those homes. There's been a lot of good points made here this evening about the previous zoning of R1. That's exactly how it was. We made the choice to purchase our home. Laura showed a picture this evening of a rendering with a 4-story right across the street from where I live, actually. What they didn't show was, as was previously mentioned this evening, all of our homes are built 6 to 10 feet above street level. So we're almost at the same level as the levee. That was like the camera sitting on the street looking up toward the building. They also didn't notice any lighting in the back of that rendering, any windows peering in your front door. But I appreciate why they would want to do that, because they're great views, and they want the opportunity to look over and through my house to see the water. So part of me just kind of wonders, and I asked a question of somebody in City Council earlier, who has the responsibility of protecting our investments in our homes? If we just lost 20% value on those 36 homes on Edgewater, that would be almost $11 million in lost market value of our properties on our street in our neighborhood. I don't see how it's responsible development to do anything that would take that much value away from the people in your community. And I guess one of my questions would be, who's your true responsibility to? Is it to the people that you think are coming there, or the people who are already here that voted you into office? In closing, I'll just say, We strongly oppose Westfield. I've talked to the West Point Community Development. I've talked to multiple people in all the surrounding communities, hundreds of people. I haven't found a single person who believes this brings value to where we live. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mayor Police and Jamie Ross is on deck.
Good evening. My name is Deb Police. I live at 105 Cherokee Lane, and I sent an email to all of you last night, and thank you to all of those who replied to me. That was very kind. I've had to make a lot of different notes because a lot has happened tonight. I want to express my strong concern specifically regarding the proposed rezoning of the 22 acres in the West Point section. I have been a realtor in Hamilton County for 20 years. I have witnessed many developments, both successful and harmful. Based on my experience, I can say with complete certainty that rezoning this property in the West Point with townhomes, even 3 stories high, is going to damage the beauty and character and natural resources of this land and surrounding neighborhoods. 3-story townhomes are one of our worst products on the market, okay? You probably don't know that because you don't sell them, but I can't remember the last time I sold a 3-story townhome. People don't want the stairs. They do not, I'm telling you, even the young people. And I know you talk about empty nesters. Even the young people, they want ranch homes. And I can tell you that because I have sold in Noblesville, even just this summer, in Lock Haven and Slater Woods, $700,000 to $900,000 homes. They're ranch homes. They sell within a day. And people are, I have multiple offers on these, and everybody says, why can't we get this product? We need more ranch homes, $700,000 to $900,000 homes. And that's what should go in West Point. Ranch homes, $800,000 to $900,000. I'm telling you, that's not these townhomes. I have to say, the city's first obligations lie with the residents who live here now, not with those who may move here in the future. The people who call this part of Hamilton County home have lived here for years and have invested in this community. Part of the city's responsibility is to protect their quality of life and to preserve the environment that makes this area so unique. The proposed development would not add amenities, but it would destroy them. The valuable natural resources such as established forests, wildlife habitats, and ecosystems cannot be replaced or replicated through any future initiatives. Once destroyed, these resources are gone for good, and no municipal tree planting program or compensation can bring back what has been lost. The displacement of wildlife will be permanent, not temporary. I urge you to carefully consider the forever consequences of this rezoning proposal. Please protect the beauty and integrity of the harbors for future generations by opposing this project. There is plenty of other land to build 4-story townhomes on, and this is not one of them. And I must say this, when we met with Laura, I don't know, it was a month ago, and we were at the school, and I did not hear any mention of this tonight, but I want to bring it up. But they said they were offering to the West Point buyers lake access. And I need to know about that, because you cannot tell people that you're going to have lake access on West Point. So you need to look into that. Okay?
Ask them that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Ross. Ross Coons is on deck. Jamie? There she is. Ross Coons is on deck.
Good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear me out. I know, Mark, we went to high school together. For anyone else.
Can you give us your name and address?
Absolutely. Sorry about that. Jamie Ross, 7675 Winding Lake Drive South. I represent Kerrigan at the levee. I'm here specifically to speak to you about West Point and how it affects our homes at Kerrigan at the levee. At the city planning meeting before this was passed to you today, there were some key points that I don't feel were made. I emailed you, but I just want to make sure that you understand. I am also a realtor. I have a responsibility to myself, my neighbors, as well as the community. I wanted to read you an excerpt. I actually got a broker opinion, and I've been speaking with appraisers in terms of what West Point will do to our actual property values. Eric Forney is the #1 agent in Keller Williams within the state of Indiana, and he has been kind enough to look at this project and assess what it would do to our home values. I'm going to take an excerpt out of his letter. The area of West Point under consideration is vital to the local ecosystem. Wetlands filter water, control floods, sequester carbon, and support diverse wildlife. Preserving them aligns with the environmental priorities of our community's commitment to sustainability. The proposed development at West Point poses risks to the long-term economic health of the surrounding community, including the decline in real property values. Homes adjacent to the development will experience a relative decrease in market value due to the reduced privacy and increased density. Studies show that proximity to similar natural spaces boost property values by 7 to 12%, making their preservation a sound economic decision for the entire area. Furthermore, neighborhoods that lose privacy and aesthetic appeal see slower property appreciation, impacting homeowners' equity and the town's tax base. In addition, I spoke to Mark Ratterman. He was a city councilman for Carmel. He's an appraiser. His whole thing was enhancements. We all know if you live on a lake, if you live on a golf course, if you live with a wooded view, your house is going to be worth more. My neighbors in East Harbor too can equally testify to that. If I was just right on the other side of the levee, my house would be 2 to 3 times more worth what it is today. For a wooded view in Hamilton County, if I say, okay, I want 0.3 acres, wooded view, show me that privacy of what I have now, lot premiums for builders are anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 in our county. In addition, if I were to have to move to find a home of equal value to what I have now, I will be paying $200,000 to $250,000 more at a 7 1/8 interest point, compared to like being locked in at 3. So it pretty much would double my mortgage payment. So for those of you that say, oh, you don't like it, you should just leave. Well, what about my neighbors that are on fixed income, that are retired? It's not that simple. We bought our home with the understanding that this land was zoned R1. You as the city have the responsibility. You're stewards. You're here to protect us. You should honor that commitment and keep the R1. Nobody is going to fight you on the single-family homes. And I can also attest to what Deb said, that 3-story townhomes are an absolute nightmare. They're all over in Fishers, and nobody wants them. You know what they want? When older people retire, they want nice things that they can maintain. The same level of quality that maybe they had in that 4,500 or 5,000 square foot home, they still want the shower jets. They want the gourmet kitchen. They want the private view, but they just want it smaller where it's more manageable. A 3-story product does not fit that. When people go and buy homes, they're looking for the views. They buy for the feels, for the small town charm. And by approving this, you're taking all that away.
Thank you. Ross Coons. On deck is Kim Shields.
Good evening, Ross Coons, 7635 Winding Lake Drive South. I've emailed all of you plenty of times telling you how this really does not fit. On the map, I mean, a lot of people say these are going to be high, but to be honest, they're not going to be high enough to actually get a view. What they're trying to sell is a view. You're going to get East Harbor 2 views with their trees in the way. The only way they're going to get a view is during the winter when the leaves are down and nobody's going to want to enjoy the rooftop deck or whatever else is on that top level. The other point is you got to get to that top floor to get the views. What's the point? You're trying to sell something that's not there. So why even try to make this townhomes? You have all the other development, just scrap the West Point part, because it's not there. The views aren't there, that's what they're trying to sell. It's just not there. I recommend you in these 2 weeks, take a drone, fly it up to the top, and see it for yourself. You're just gonna see treetops. You're not gonna actually see a lake. Maybe 1 condo, 2 condos might have the view, but everything else is just trees and other townhomes. So the other part is taken from R1 to R5. There's certainty. People buy certainty. People don't buy uncertainty. So if you take something that's R1, go to R5, what's the point of zoning? Just scrap the zoning map, if this is what it's going to be. We bought with certainty that R1 or surrounding neighborhoods, R3, would be appropriate. Not going from R1 to R5, high density, something that would be in a city, not in a suburban area. So that's my points. I hope you guys take it into consideration and vote no for the West Point piece of it. Thank you.
Kim Shields, that's the last card I have if anybody still wants to make an extra point. You can fill out a card, you can just fill out a card or come up and enter. Okay.
Hello, I'm Kim Shields at 2082 Winding Lake Road.
Thank you.
Most of the points have been addressed. One of the points that I haven't heard, and my family, we've had a boat at Morse Lake for years, is the lake is small. The traffic into Morse Landing is really restrictive during the summer. I was lucky to get a dock years after being on the wait list. The traffic on the lake at times is very dangerous. There were several accidents last year. Having this many people move in to enjoy Morse Lake with it right next door, I think a lot of people would feel that's very hazardous. It's a very, very narrow lake. There's not a lot of places to even go tubing. So the impact on the lake, I think, is going to be not a preferable thing. I think all of us like to enjoy the lake, but it is at times dangerous out there. My father, actually, our family home is a Kerrigan on the Levee. So we are one of the houses that it's being impacted by West Point. My dad does have some taller arborvitaes, but there's no buffering what we enjoy now that you're proposing to happen. And I am going to address one thing that I think is that really hurt my father's heart, was to hear the mayor on a podcast say that he'd like to see the 60 and 70-year-olds move out so the young people can move in. He's been living in this town, relocated here from Connecticut, which was a nice, quiet area, to another nice, quiet area, to have his home that he has built himself years ago, that he enjoys, to be thought of, well, he should move out because he's in his 80s. He would like for you to represent him and protect him from what he built that house for, to enjoy the country and the lake life. And I can tell you, I am at my father's house all the time. And I come in and check on him, and I take care of his bills, and I do all kinds of things for him. And if it's around 3 o'clock, I can expect to wait 15 plus minutes to get out of the neighborhood, because we live right next to the roundabout. And I know there's been traffic studies done, but I can tell you, there's no getting out of there. I mean, I have to basically do the hopper out to the traffic to get out. When those school buses let out of school and that roundabout, if there is an emergency, and I know this is a concern for the fire department, there's nowhere to go. It's bottleneck traffic. and you're proposing to put 1,000+ more cars in there with a 2-lane road, I don't care what traffic study you've done, it's just common sense, and if you don't understand what I'm saying, then you need to go and be there around any time when the schools are letting in or out. It is impossible. So there's no way that can stay a 2-lane road if you're proposing this many more cars. And another roundabout is just adding more cars to come into the 2-lane road. So for safety reasons, for an ambulance that might need to be called for my dad, I mean, I'm concerned. He literally lives behind the fire department. And he's had a great relationship with all the business owners and the fire department there, but he would like for you to protect him and his neighbors. And that's what he voted for. He voted for many of you that are here. Thank you.
Thank you. One more, John Cornett. Yeah, John Cornett, thank you. Anybody else have a card to fill out?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. My name is John Cornett. I live at 129 Edgewater Drive. I'm president of East Harbor 2 Homeowners Association. I live next door to the guy with the dog in the driveway. Put things in perspective, which is kind of in the middle of the neighborhood. I like to, when I became president, it was back in 2017, and right after I became president, MI Homes was making a proposal for that same area where West is being developed. We had a lot of neighbors come to me saying, we got to fight this, we got to fight this. But we went to the presentation of MI Homes, we looked at it, there were single-family homes, single-story homes. I remember having a meeting at my house with my members of my group, and at the time, my neighbor, Mayor John Ditzler, was there as well, and we all talked about what that means, and we all felt that single-story homes going in across the street would be the best solution opposed to other types of developments. So we agreed as a homeowners association, including John, that this would be the best solution for us. Unfortunately, they did not go in because of the problems with the water and issues with the water situation there. I just recently put $250,000 into my house to upgrade it and improve it, knowing that where I live and what I have, putting something, a 4-story apartments or buildings across the street from me, you know, they're going to tell you it doesn't detract from my property value, but it will. And all my neighbors feel as well, including my neighbors who are realtors who have done research. This is going to have a very negative effect on myself and my neighbors. We are okay with R1 development in that. We don't understand why it can't be R1. You can put expensive R1 homes into that area. To put these high-rise buildings across the street from us, it's just imagine what it'd be like across the street from you guys. It's, we're opposed to this West development. So I speak for my neighborhood association. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That concludes our public input session. So I think Mr. Jensen would like to respond first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, I didn't intend to respond, but I do want to take a moment based on the comment that was made tonight, if you'll allow me to. It has been noted that on Election Day, I did film a podcast with 2 realtors in Carmel. I've done it before. Anyone who knows me knows I try to be as readily available to talk about any topic at any point in time. I often do so without notes, which is something that I prided myself with, but I also realize the risk in that. And that podcast was an hour-long podcast talking about the importance of our community promoting the city of Noblesville. And it was during that time that we discussed this development and many other developments. And I used some phraseology that, quite frankly, I regret. And it's phraseology that I would like to apologize for tonight. And if it's okay, I actually apologized for this publicly on Wednesday on Facebook. I recognize not everyone either read it or chose to want to read it, and so I'm going to read it tonight if you wouldn't mind. I said, anyone who knows me knows I strive to be as open and transparent as possible, sometimes to a fault. I hold myself to a high standard, and I expect others to do the same. I also try to own any time I'm wrong. This month, I recorded an hour-long podcast with 2 local realtors. On the podcast, I attempted to highlight the importance of adding more housing options in Noblesville for those who wish to age in place and stay here. I said, quote, "We need baby boomers to get out of their homes so younger families can repopulate our neighborhoods." I recognize and own that that statement in and of itself was offensive and insensitive. However, within context, my point was to say that providing more housing options for empty nesters in the 55 and better population, it allows them to stay in Noblesville, which is what we're striving for. The goal is to have options for all current members of our community and to free up homes for new families so that Noblesville remains home to those already here and becomes home to the many families who seek to live in such a wonderful community. Words matter, and my wording was poor. I apologize for that. Context also matters, and I hope that for those who are offended, you would take the time to listen and reflect on the entire message. I apologize to anyone I offended. It wasn't my goal in the least. I am human, and I made a mistake. And I will work to be better next time. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach me, my personal cell phone being 317-509-3134. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so I've broken the comments from Plan Commission and also some questions we heard tonight into several categories. I don't know if you'd like to go ahead and respond to that, or if we're going to go into those questions. If you want to start with your comments and then, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Adam Hill, Gilmore Corporation, Phil Sundling. We're welcome to walk through this however you would like. What we thought was we might have David Hall, who's with us tonight, who put together the home valuation report, come up and maybe present a little bit of what he did, the analysis that he went through, and then you're welcome to ask him any questions. It was an independent study and report, and I thought it might be helpful just to hear directly from him.
Thank you.
If that's
Well,
okay.
I was going to go through some of the technical points first and then get into that a little more detail.
That sounds good.
I have, in particular, the road traffic study. We heard some kind of differencing. I just want to make sure the council, we have answers to all the questions, so we make a decision in a couple of weeks. The traffic study was the engineers here. You want to talk a little bit about the comment about the county road and some of the methodology involved in, how do you put together a traffic study? What does that include? What does that involve? And how you got to where you got.
Sure, absolutely. My name's Amanda Johnson with EMCS, and we prepared the traffic study. So with any traffic impact analysis, we follow guidelines from national and Indiana Transportation, Department of Transportation. Additionally, we coordinated with City of Noblesville, Jim Hellman, as far as scope specifics and specifically what to consider with this traffic study itself. So generally, we consider any existing deficiencies not due to any development. We add on development, and then we also and identify deficiencies with that, and then we also project out a horizon year, just to be sure that in 10 years, even if background traffic still grows, that the improvements we're saying today will still be valid in that horizon year. So with the analysis, that did show that the roundabout would be required, not technically today, but with very little additional development. So that is being constructed. And then additionally, the turn lanes into and out of all of the driveways to the proposed development. What that does specifically along Hague is moves people out of that through movement. So if there's no turn lane, and there aren't some in some locations today, so these may be a dual benefit, it gets turning vehicles out of the way of people traveling through on those roadways. Additionally, the developer is going to widen, which improves capacity. So even if you're not widening to 4 lanes, we're going from, I believe it's currently 10 lane, let me know if I'm not, 9 foot, which is bare minimum. So 9 feet out to 12 feet, which improves capacity, but it also improves safety along these roadways. So after City of Noblesville Engineering Department reviewed and we addressed any of their comments, they also requested an additional analysis specifically along Hague because there were concerns about it needing to be a 4-lane. So with that, we did an additional sensitivity analysis, which basically looked at, instead of any development, a 20-year horizon forecast, which is what would be typical for any roadway improvement that the city might do irrespective of any development. So with that, the traffic projection was higher than our full build out with horizon year. And it showed that these improvements would still cause the roadways to operate well. With respect, you mentioned the respect to the thoroughfare plan. I know that came up a couple of times, and yes, the Hamilton County does have a thoroughfare plan from 2007, which has not been updated, and that showed a connection between 206, a realignment with 206 and 211th, and when that would be done, that a 4-lane would be needed. That is no longer happening, and certainly we did analyze along 206th Street as well, which showed the 2-lane with turn lanes would be sufficient.
Thank you.
Any
And the traffic study analyzes not just this intersection or development, but there's a wider net.
Correct. Yes, so, and that's one of the things that specifically we coordinated with Noblesville to say, you know, based on NDOT guidance, here is the intersections that we would include, and then they concurred and actually added a couple others, so we included those. I don't have those off the top of my head, but the report I know is available for you all.
Okay. And that traffic study will be online tomorrow as well with the rest of information? I assume so.
I'm sure we can make it available. It's a detailed document. I'm sure we can make it available.
Any other questions about traffic?
Mr. President?
Yes.
I
Yes,
have
Mr.
something to mention about traffic to this individual that came up and said that they thought that we should talk about widening or about the traffic and doing the roundabout and that before we build the neighborhood or we go with anything. I just wanted to say, one of the things I've learned in the 16 years I've been here is a decent amount about roundabouts since we put in so many of them here in the community. And they're very expensive in the very beginning when we put them in, but they actually saved the community quite a bit of money over the years due to the less electricity being used, but also because accidents, while there are almost as many accidents, the damage from them goes down so much and the injuries go down so much that it costs us a lot less. That being said, the initial investment for roundabouts is extreme because you have to buy so much more land. So one of the things is the city that we do, which we do almost across the city, I'm not going to say always, but almost always, Mayor can tell me if I'm wrong, but is we wait for developers to come in because then they will give us the land back, which allows us to do the roundabouts, which we probably would not be able to afford to do in the beginning. So while it would be nice to have that roundabout right there right now, before we bring anything in, and this is not anything don't hear anything more, but I just wanted to address that person's one comment is, you're not going to see that happen very many times at all throughout the city, that the city goes in and buys land and puts it in because it's just so expensive. It would make it impossible for the municipality to afford it and to be able to do that. So that's why we wait until the development comes in. Now, that being said, usually we try and make the roundabout as one of the first things that happens around that area. So there's a very good chance that if this goes or something else goes through, that'd be one of the first things that would happen there after the developer gives us the land. But you're just not going to see the city go in and buy the land. So I hope I'm okay by saying that, but I just want to address that one concern because it's something I hear quite a bit. Why are you putting in so many roundabouts, and also are they expensive, are they cheap, and that? So hopefully that addresses that one concern.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
Any other road comments? Okay, I've got water quantity, came up quite a bit this evening. Does somebody want to address conversations with CEG?
Yeah. What assurances do you have or can you give to us gentleman that all appropriate inquiry has been made for potential impacts to both surface and groundwater as it relates to one, your development, two, the wetlands, and while we're talking things regulatory, if you will, you know, have we reached out? I believe I heard you had, but what assurances do we have that you've had those discussions with the appropriate state, county, federal agencies regarding our waters, our wildlife, as it relates to the development?
Yep, so CEG, they are the utility provider for water in this area, as you know. They're governed by the IURC. There are specific rules they have to follow. I don't know what all those rules are, admittedly, but if it's something where you think we need to sit down with them, gather some information, I think that's probably a good next step. But we have confirmed with them that there is water availability for this development. We've got it in writing. I think we shared it with Jim Hellman on the engineering side, and we're happy to share that with you all as well.
And Mr. Johnson, we're required to comply with certain laws and regulations, and we don't have a choice. So we absolutely will comply with.
Even if you had a choice, you still would, right?
That's true. That's true. We don't view it as a choice.
No, I understand.
And the water quality, we discussed the wetlands quite a bit tonight. It is 4.5 acres roughly, and half an acre is being mitigated.
Yep.
And you follow the rules for the state of Indiana.
Yep.
We could potentially end up with more wetlands in this area. We're trying to mitigate it 3-to-1 or 4-to-1.
That's correct.
Okay.
Exactly right.
We could end up with 2 acres additional wetlands as a result of this project, depending on the rules of IDEM.
That's correct.
But you're going to
Yep.
follow those rules, and those plans will get submitted.
Yep. Yep.
We heard a lot about the Eagles. The Plan Commission meeting, there was a little confusion about which set of rules. Eagles, I never thought they'd be this complicated, but.
There's a certain set of, I'll talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that, but there's a certain set of rules that applies to certain regions.
Yep.
We're in Region 3. So we've worked extensively with Fish and Wildlife. We've obtained the permit. There are certain recommendations that Fish and Wildlife makes on any development that occurs within 660 feet. There's recommendations that any development that occurs within 330 feet. When we look at those recommendations, once we start work, there's certain recommendations to continue certain work and work towards the nest and don't stop work so the eagle can adapt to the environment. So we're complying with all the recommendations from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we've talked to U.S. Fish and Wildlife probably 10 times. We've emailed numerous times. So we're working with them. We view it as a very important part of the overall project.
And you have a permit?
We do have a permit.
And that permit will be available online, I assume? It's somewhere, okay.
Yes.
And there are 2 roads that are currently in that 330 foot. 206 and Hague Road are currently within 330 feet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And also,
Quick question I had on the fire station. Did Fish and Wildlife take that into account when they were looking at it from, I don't know how many runs we have going out weekly and monthly.
I think there's about 42 runs a month, based upon our research. And I presume they take multiple things into account when they look at this stuff. But one thing that was kind of eye-opening to us is you have these eagles living here, and you have a fire station that has over 1 run a day, basically. When they come out, sirens, lights, and the eagles still live in this tree not very far away. And these fire trucks are driving right past the nest. Eagles adapt to certain environments. And so the eagles have adapted to fire trucks and ambulances now with sirens and lights driving by 1 time a day, and they still live there. So it's more about adaptation than it is about sometimes loud noises or the fire trucks.
Thank you.
thank you. Back to the water quality question. There was a question about DNR protection. Somebody speak to that? Water quantity.
You guys know about DNR, or I can speak to it if not. Sure. So there are protections. Indiana Department of Natural Resources does provide protections for folks who have low quantity wells. So that's basically anything that's under 100,000 gallons per day. Anything over 100,000 gallons per day is a large user, and DNR does provide protections that if your well were to run dry because a large user brings a new well online, that DNR has protections. You can contact DNR, and they actually can force the large user to pay your cost. In this instance, the quote-unquote large user could be Citizens Energy Group. Based on the information that I've seen, Citizens Energy Group does not intend to bring a new large well on capacity for this project. based on what they see from their system right now and its interconnectedness, they don't need another well production. They have sufficient capacity in their system now. So I'm not sure that would be an issue, but there are protections at DNR, and I'd encourage folks to reach out to them if they're concerned.
Thank you. Trails. We had a lot of comments about trails. We're adding trails, connectivity to the school, school safety. How many miles?
We have miles of trails that we're adding.
Okay.
I think it's just almost approximately 6 miles of trails throughout the entire Morris Village development that we'll be adding, trails and walks.
And we had some comments about setbacks. How far are the townhomes and condominiums from the trail? We heard 0, and I don't think that's true.
From the levee trail specifically?
Yeah, levee trail specifically.
So West Point has, so when you do a plan development, and Mr. Dathott's with us tonight to talk specific on waivers if you have specific questions, but when you do the plan development, there's a 50-foot buffer requirement because usually you're going maybe from commercial to residential. In West Point specifically, it's residential to residential, there's a 15-foot buffer requirement. We're proposing a 20-foot buffer on West Point, and committing at a request that we had was to densify that buffer as well.
In the condos, as you can see here, this requires, touchscreen. There's a 50-foot buffer for the condos.
50, okay.
Yep.
And we had a lot of questions at Planning Commission about schools. We didn't hear much about that tonight, but if somebody wants to kind of address schools or conversations with the schools.
I believe the mayor did.
I think the mayor
Okay.
mentioned that.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
While we're still talking about trails, one of the things I wrote down there, and I don't know if Dan's still here, his invite, I did on Sunday, spent 2 hours. Walked the trail, drove through all the neighborhoods, looked at it all different ways. One of the questions that was brought up tonight was specifically in that buffer area. What kinds of trees, what would that look like? Could you maybe give a little bit more detail into what that buffer area would look like, please?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're planning a mix of both conifers and deciduous trees. Generally, there are some enhanced buffers, particularly on the north end that we talked about, doing purely conifers, doubling the required amount of conifers. On the screen here are a mix of what we would propose there. These are pretty typical in Indiana. You've got cedars, spruce, hemlocks, firs, just a number of different trees. We would try to mix those in and make it as natural as possible. I don't know if are there any specific areas you want to?
No, some of the questions were, just at what point would those be in, and would they be saplings, or are they going to be somewhat mature trees?
Yeah, so Noblesville has requirements on minimum size for trees, so you don't plant saplings, obviously. There's also a limitation on what size tree you can put in for vitality. You can't put in a 40-foot tree, unfortunately. They just wouldn't survive. So we would abide by or meet or exceed what Noblesville would require for the size of tree for all of our buffers.
Thank you.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of conversation about a 4-inch caliper tree will grow slower than a 2-inch caliper tree just because of the hardiness and the stress.
Sure, yep.
So
As well.
there was a question about lake access for the West Point development, and I don't know that I've heard the response to that. So can you please talk to that?
So I think maybe it got misconstrued a little bit. The lake access is up by Wolfie's, where
So at the
people can
marina.
go up and, at the marina. We actually, when was it, Mr. Boyce and Mr. Elliott, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, we actually walked that trail, which we had a great walk and a great conversation on it, and I think you had shared a potential concern about boat docks. And so we've committed no boat docks as part of West Point.
Okay.
So
So the only
theoretically, there's
access
no lake, I mean, the lake access is just what everybody else could go access, but it's proximity. That's what makes the whole development and project unique. It has wonderful proximity to the already existing lake access. But on West Point specifically, Mr. Boyce made that request, and we said no boat docks.
Okay. Thank you.
2 more questions, the UDO and comp plan, and kind of how the comp plan works, how that's, I don't know if somebody from the city wants to address that, just how the comp plan, how did we get with an R1, how did we get, how does the comp plan work? Ms. Reed stood up too fast. She's probably going to the bathroom, but just how did we get to an R1 comp plan? How does the comp plan work?
Thank you very much.
Can you give us your name and what your role is with the city?
I will, yes. Sarah Reed, Community Development Director for the record, oversee planning and economic development. Just a quick overview. I kind of want to highlight two items tonight. One is really what a comprehensive master plan is and what it does. And in general, it's a long-term document that outlines a community's vision. It's meant to be a guide document that gets updated every 5 years. It also looks 20 years ahead. A lot can change in a community in 5 years, and I think we heard a couple suggestions of that happening here in Noblesville yet tonight. What you see actually up on the West Point development is a picture of our future land use map from that comprehensive master plan. And you'll see that those do not follow parcel lines. They're bubbles on purpose to mean that these are generally the uses that are intended to be part of a future vision. They're meant to be flexible and fluid as this document, again, gets updated every 5 years. The second piece I would like to mention is that a future land use map is different than a zoning map. And so you mentioned R1 several times. That's different than low-density residential or mixed-density residential. Has actual legal components to how that zoning works. So when a zoning change happens, we come here through this public process that starts at Plan Commission and ends with council in order to see the development as a full picture of what that could be and how it fits the overall vision, not just of the future land use map, but also the other elements of a comprehensive master plan, which includes, as we've pointed out several times over this development and many others, the housing analysis piece that includes missing middle housing. So I don't know if that generally answers.
Are these projects in the city of Noblesville, or do they need to be annexed?
These parcels?
Yeah.
Are, actually, I think a couple of them are being annexed, correct? And that includes, so the road network in between will be annexed with this project. So we heard some mentions of what this 206 looks like on the county's thoroughfare plan, but as this project gets annexed into the city of Noblesville, we also have this on our thoroughfare plan as well.
And as I understand it, we have never identified a piece of property that's not annexed and that's still in the county as anything but R1.
Correct. When property gets annexed into the city of Noblesville, it becomes R1 automatically.
Okay.
Until rezone.
Okay. So it always starts as R1. Thank you, when it's still in the county. Okay, now the big one. The property values. Again, we just received this document for the meeting. We've not had a chance to review it. It's going to be online tomorrow. I appreciate if Mr. Hall could walk us through the methodology, what we're looking at, so we can better understand it and be prepared for maybe some questions in a couple of weeks.
Good evening. My name is David Hall. I'm a certified general real estate appraiser here in Indiana, and I'm currently a managing director with Integra Realty Resources in Indianapolis. We were asked to prepare an analysis of value impact. As you know, it's 96 pages. I won't attempt to walk through all of it here. I will note that most of that 96 pages is data. And maybe just in the interest of time here, I'll just walk you through our process.
Yeah, thank you.
This is in our cover letter here, where we talk about our scope of work. So the starting point for us was to obviously inspect the West Point area. So we did that. I walked it myself. We then searched for comparable townhome, condominium, and multifamily developments within Hamilton County that are also adjacent to existing single-family residential subdivisions. We then inspected those selected comparable developments, and we have 6 in Hamilton County. We then inspected the residential subdivisions that are adjacent to the comparable developments. And then within those subdivisions, we searched for paired sales. So that's a sale and then a resale of the same property of homes that are adjacent to the townhome and condominium communities, and then also homes that are non-adjacent. That essentially gives us that basis of comparison. For each paired sale, we then calculated the annual rate of value increase over time. We also analyzed prior assessments for the same sets of adjacent and non-adjacent homes. And then again, for each selected home, We calculated the average annual rate of assessment increase over time, again comparing the two, adjacent homes with non-adjacent homes. We then compared those annual rates of value increase, both the assessment data and the paired sales data, to a benchmark, and that's the Zillow Home Value Index. They do report that publicly for all of Hamilton County, so that gives us kind of a benchmark to compare adjacent homes, non-adjacent homes. We're looking at that data in comparison to each other to see if there's a significant difference. And then we also compared that data to the benchmark for Hamilton County as a whole. A couple things to note just about appraisers. This applies to everybody, not just me. We are in fact legally bound to be unbiased and impartial. Every time I do something like this, I put my license on the line, so I take it very seriously. We just note that we looked at a total of, I think, 60-plus sale transactions, sales and resales. Again, 6 comparable developments. If you want to flip in your report, I think our discussions of those begin on page 22. The 6 comparable developments that we looked at include the 116 Towns development, that's in Fishers, just off 116th Street. We also looked at Greystone of Noblesville, that's actually a multifamily apartment complex, but it happens to be adjacent to single-family homes that are waterfront. We also looked at the Village of West Clay, has a mix of single-family homes, condominiums, and townhome units. We also looked at the townhomes of Hazeldale, and then the townhomes at Hunters Creek. Generally speaking, most of these are relatively recently built, newer construction. Try to limit our search for comps to developments that were built within the past 20 years. We're trying to find newer construction here. 2 to 4 story. And then we also considered, as part of our criteria, the home values of the homes adjacent to these communities. Comp 1, the 116 Towns, this was sort of the low end of the spectrum, that $300,000 to $400,000 range. High end of the spectrum was probably Greystone of Noblesville, in which the home values range from about $600,000 to $1.6 million. So a lot of data in here. I would just say, we tried to be as transparent as possible. All of our data is publicly available, so folks are welcome to check our work. Be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
It's looked at home values before and after the construction of the condos.
So it's a mix, right. In some of the comps we have, we looked at sales of properties that sold before the townhome or condo development was built, and then we have a sale after. And then we also have some comps in which we track values of homes that were built after that development was completed and track their change in value over time to see if that multifamily development had an adverse impact on those home values over time.
Thank you. Any other questions about the property value question?
Mr. President?
Yeah.
In looking at this data, it definitely looks like it's from a very tangible source. Where is this data being pulled from? Is it being pulled directly from something?
Sure. We have a section in here that talks about our data sources. I think that's the first couple pages of the report. Page 5, I think, you'll see a list of all the data sources we looked at. For the sales themselves, we really relied on 2 sources. One is Zillow, and then the second is public records. So we looked at property record cards that are maintained by Hamilton County. Indiana is a disclosure state, so sales prices are publicly available, they're reported. We wanted to make sure that we had at least 2 sources to verify those transactions and that they agreed with each other.
Was this MIBOR data or IAR data?
I think the bulk of this probably is in MIBOR as well, but we relied primarily just on the property record cards, like I say, and then also Zillow. But yeah, you could certainly check it with MIBOR as well. It should say the same thing.
It's just interesting. I haven't heard Zillow used as much.
Well, one thing I personally like about it, it's used quite a bit in academic research. It is true, like anything, there's sort of a margin of error, but it also allows you to compare apples with apples. You're looking at Zillow data for adjacent homes. As long as you're looking at it for non-adjacent homes as well, you're still relying on the same source. Obviously, there's still always the chance of error. That's why we also looked at Hamilton County Public Records to make sure that that sales price was noted and agreed with Zillow.
Any other questions about property values? Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Sure.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, members of the audience, I'm Dave Johnson. I represent the far other corner of Noblesville. I represent the southeast side of the city, and I just wanted to say publicly and on the record that I appreciate the passion that you have for our community and for your homes, your residences, and the fact that some 78 of you chose to reach out to me in email, and rather than responding with a thank you, thank you, thank you 78 times, I wanted to be on the record to say that I do truly appreciate your passion and your willingness to be part of the process, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have another question for Laura. I live downtown, just a few blocks north of the square. I hear a lot that as we're building new types of developments in Noblesville, that people really desire condos. When you guys were just looking at this site to begin with, what led you to condos? What led you to put the condos where you did? And why did you want to do that?
Yeah, I think.
Or all of it?
Specifically West Point, but generally, as you were laying this out, why did you choose to put it there?
Yeah, I think West Point specifically, the activation of the views, the connection to the trail, the connection that you can live, have views of the water, drive down and get on your boat down at the marina. You can get on your bike or walk down the trail and go to some of the local commercial restaurants that we're going to provide. That's a very unique setting that just doesn't really exist. So when we looked at it, Phil and I walked it. We walked the trail numerous times. We walked the site. Phil got in and walked around the pond numerous times. We just fell in love with the site, and the site itself is unique. And then when you take into consideration all the natural amenities that exist, it's one of a kind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So can you share with us what you anticipate to be the build-out process? If this project were to move forward, the whole project?
Sure.
What are we looking at? It's not like 600 homes are going to sprout out of the ground next year.
You're probably better suited to answer that. Overall, it's about 7 to 10 years, but Phil can kind of walk through the...
Yeah, so it will be probably 7 to 10 year development. Let me see if the pointer still works. The first step is going to be to extend the sewer. So the sewer sits down here on the southeast of the site, the interceptor. That will get extended through South Point all the way up to this point here. So the first couple phases really of all of the development will be South Point, activating that sanitary sewer. Next would be North Point, activating that, getting some of the commercial going, and then over the next 5 to 6 years beyond that, it would just slowly take off.
Mr. President, I have another question. Not specific to west, north, or south, but just overall, outside of the multi-family units in North Point. I think we talked about this early, but want to bring it up again for the record. Have you put into place, I haven't seen it yet, our rental agreement kind of restrictions where we're capping rental properties in neighborhoods?
We have not put that in place, but we are happy to make that commitment.
Okay, thank you.
Can we see that before in 2 weeks? Yeah.
Sure.
Short-term lease.
Short-term lease restrictions. We've done that for the last few, so that language is available.
Yeah, so just for clarification, that's new this year. All townhome products that we've approved in Noblesville, there's a 1-year restriction that we've put in place that when someone buys it, they can't just build it and rent it. And that's what we've asked for all builders that are building this product to commit to. So just doubling down on that, that's what you are agreeing to, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I'm sorry,
Mr. Thurston?
one more, I'm sorry. The roads that will be in here, public roads, private roads?
Correct. All the roads will be public, alleys will be private.
Thank you.
Yep.
I know that we've talked a little bit about starting prices for the townhomes. I know that we don't have the exact product necessarily, but can you give me a sense on either townhome pricing or condo pricing?
Let me pull. So on the market now, which I think we would obviously be in line with, let me pull that information. I think they were in the 200s and 300s per square foot. That's on the market now, existing townhomes and condos. So, I mean, we're going to be probably in some, I don't know if we're going to be quite that high here. Well, that's probably information we can come back with on the 17th.
Do you know, and I'm going for averages here, and an approximate size of a condo unit?
Anywhere from over 1,000 to 3,000, just depends on the number of bedrooms in the condo.
I have one more question.
Mr. Smith.
There was a question that I wrote down from someone, I can't remember, I didn't write down the name, but there was concerns about the number of waivers with the development. Can you talk about that with our standards and, you know, what that means with like the zero lot line, how it comes into play with townhomes, et cetera, and why you have to do that? Again, I don't know if that's a Sarah Reed question or if that's
I can give some context as there comes up.
work?
Great question. So this zoning is coming forward as a PD overlay. In Noblesville, when we do PD overlays, we first address the base zoning. That's the first ordinance in front of you. And then we do a PD overlay. And the PD overlay allows a developer to lay out the site and give us a lot more detail than we would get if we just rezoned it as R1, R3, R4, R5. So the PD actually provides a development plan, provides or at least a concept plan, provides details on what that would look like. In this particular instance, and it's in detail in the staff report that was presented to Plan Commission, which is available on the Plan Commission's website, city's website. The waivers, let's talk about West Point first, since that's where there's been a lot of comments tonight. I think there's a concern about the height waiver and a concern that was mentioned about the landscape buffer. So our height restrictions for R5, which is the base zoning, would be 45 feet. They have, in their waivers, asked for something to go up to, I think, 70 feet, something like that. We would be reducing that down with the new commitments based on the commitments they made tonight. So we'll go through and figure out what those are and present those in a commitment document at your next meeting. The second would be the landscape buffer. So our PD overlay, and Adam mentioned this, our PD overlay district automatically triggers a 50-foot landscape buffer. The reason for that is think corporate campus, think areas where we're bringing in commercial development or industrial development. The idea is that you may be bringing in a more intense use. However, the R5 zoning district only requires a 15-foot buffer from residential. So what we're doing here is, yes, it's a waiver from the PD, but it's actually a more stringent buffer in West Point. 20 feet around the townhomes. I think to the north, it's actually a little bit wider where the 2 stories are. It's a little bit bigger of a buffer. And then, as they mentioned, there's a larger buffer with the condo component because it is a slightly more intense use than you would have for townhomes. There is a zero lot line, and that may be part of West Point as well. So we do an R5 zoning. We've had the other townhomes before you, so I know you've heard this before, but R5 is the closest thing we have for this type of product. Often R5 is multifamily apartment type uses. But R5 is the closest thing we have as a base zoning district. And then we have zero lot lines because your walls are touching in townhomes, right? So that's the reason for that in West Point. As concerns North Point, there is some landscape buffer restriction there as well, and that is, the idea behind that is the commercial is closer to the road frontage because it's an idea of neighborhood commercial, neighborhood retail, and so we want it, the city wants it to have that feel that you can just walk right up, that it's not set back and isolated like it's something that belongs to the development, it belongs to the community. So that's part of the reason there. And I'm not for sure the waivers on South Point of any that were raised tonight that might have been a concern. Did I address kind of the ones that were a concern for you?
Thank you for explaining
Did
that.
I say anything incorrectly, Denise? Okay. So, and that's detailed in the staff report. It starts, I think, maybe at page 4 or 5 of the staff report, so you can look there.
Thank you.
I appreciate the explanation of the R5, and that's the closest zoning we have to this. And I appreciate that the You mentioned some density condominium projects in Noblesville are 10 per acre. This is 6.5, 6.6. Okay.
And our R5, I think, is 15 per acre max, so this is a significant reduction from what
I
our
don't know what
R5
this would
requires.
net to an R3, R2 if it were. Okay, okay. Mr. Boyce?
Yeah, just question and comment with this. I've had some neighbors ask me if I could take them out and walk them and show them exactly where every condo is going to be and where they're going to add up. This really does not provide that because they have to come back with their second one. This gives them kind of the zoning and pretty much where we are, but yet we would have to wait till they would come back to know exactly where those would be. Is that correct?
Sure, there'll be a more detailed site plan that's provided as part of the TAC process, but because you're approving this, I think it's fair for you to show residents this is what's being presented and what we anticipate coming forward. And given the level of detail that we've put into this plan, I fully expect that this board, ARB, and TAC are going to hold them to make sure that it meets or exceeds what they've shown you.
And to reiterate, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Mr.
To
Johnson.
reiterate, gentlemen, the townhomes we're discussing are for purchase, fee simple, not multifamily housing. They are individual homes, just with a 0 lot line.
That's correct.
That's correct in West Point and South Point. There's also components of that in North Point. There is some multifamily in North
Yes.
Point.
Any other questions? So we have, we've talked about pushing this out for 2 weeks. Do we need a motion to do that, or can we just?
No, you don't. The ordinance was introduced. As long as there's no motion to approve, it just is automatically on your next agenda.
Okay.
And you've made that announcement, so I think that's all you need to do.
Any other comments?
Mr. President, I do
Yeah,
have
Mr.
one more
Thurston.
comment. And again, and Dave said this earlier, I appreciate everyone coming out. You know, when we were meeting with folks yesterday, I said, I would much rather people show up. I would much rather people, the emails that we received were all very well written, no name calling or anything like that. And this is a volunteer position, pretty much, right? So treating us like human beings is appreciated. It doesn't happen all the time. We all live in Noblesville. Of everything that was said tonight, I take offense to one thing. We have not lost our character. Show up Friday night, first Friday of every month on Main Street, walk downtown, and you'll see the same character today at 78,000 people that we did when I graduated high school in 1990 at 25,000 people. Our character is not gone. This is our home. I want my kids to live here. I want their kids to live here. Everyone up here feels that way. And I take offense to the fact that someone says that we're losing our character. Show up on the first Friday, and I guarantee you, you will see the character that we have.
It's the contradiction of this job. We want to do the best we can to create the best city we can, and then we're surprised when more people want to come here.
Well, and Mr. President, one last item here too. Echo everything that's been said. I have been so grateful to see people coming out and getting involved and voicing their opinions. I realize that only 3,500 of you voted for me in last November. So a lot of you might not know who I am, and that's okay. I understand. But I've lived here for 27 years, and I went through the school system. I want this to be a fantastic place for everyone. And I want you to know that as far as individually, when we talk, we've talked a lot about this project. And we've had some really good dialogue about what the future of Noblesville looks like. And I think that's just been fantastic for our council. It's been fantastic for our community. And I just want to thank you for being involved. I really enjoyed being at the Plan Commission meeting and hearing your thoughts there. And I hope you know that this body takes this very, very seriously. This is our home too. and we are privileged to serve you. So, thank you.
Any other comments?
Come join us Friday night.
Yeah, somebody want to give some details of Friday night?
It was 3 hours ago.
That was 3 hours ago.
Yes, Friday night, the Lights Over Seminary starts at 6 o'clock at Seminary Park, and then the Christmas and Lights Parade is Saturday night down in downtown.
7 o'clock?
Yes.
7 o'clock.
Any other comments? Oh, tomorrow or the next day, Laura's presentation, the appraisal, and any other information will be, you'll link to the council agenda and the council meeting minutes, and you'll be able to find all this information there. So thank you. Meeting is adjourned.